And you're on.
Should we start with zoning?
You are this first. So introduce yourself and start.
Good evening. I'm Netta Borsatori. I'm the Chair of Land Use and Economic Development for CB1. Today is January 12th, our first meeting in January 2026. We're going to start with land use and zoning, zoning and economic development. Our first presenter, are they in the room?
It's the first presenter, Key.
Yes.
Oh, Clay.
Yes.
Then we are here in the room.
Perfect. Let's start with you guys.
Okay.
Tell me when you're ready for me to share.
Ready for you to share. And if we make sure my business partner here, Francis, can hear and be heard.
Did you see?
Can everyone hear me and see me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, Francis.
Awesome.
And just give me a second so I can get the share going for you. Ta-da, here we are.
And should I just tell you when to move slides? or-
Absolutely, that worked. You know, we can try this. Yeah, let's try it. Maybe not. You're gonna say go and I will do it.
Ready to go?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Lynn. I am the co-founder of a company called Key Acceleration. We build startup accelerators for tech startups. We're going to tell you a little bit about why that's relevant to economic development in Lower Manhattan over the next 10 to 15 minutes, specifically in comparison to a project we just completed with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, which resulted in open storefronts in Manhattan. A couple of meanders. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little bit about who we are and just clarification. We're here as an educational resource. We're here to tell you about the outcomes of this project, put it on the table for your leadership, to you as leaders of this area to think about bringing in for your retailers and your business community. And we would be one of the groups that could build that if you decided to do it, but this is a purely educational opportunity. Cool. Okay, great. Next slide. So, like I said, we build startup accelerators, and I want to give you a little bit more context into what that is. Our business has worked with over 900 tech startups over the past 10 years. Those companies have gone on to raise more than $1.18 billion over the past 5 years and are worth over $6.7 billion as a portfolio. I established that because we're taking that expertise in the tech world and discovering that these accelerator programs can actually produce robust economic development outcomes outside of tech. And so Manhattan Chamber of Commerce was one of the first public organizations that we have worked with to build these programs. We've also worked with Charles County in Washington, D.C. to do so for small and medium-sized businesses in the first ring of DC. With me so far? Okay, next slide. These are some of the international governments that we've worked with. We've worked with over 20 international governments to build these programs, often to help tech startups come from other countries into New York specifically. Next slide. But the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce Retail Storefront Accelerator is a really strong example of how these kinds of programs that are now well established in tech entrepreneurship can help build local economies. And so the reason that the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce created this storefront resurgence program, this was launched in 2023 in partnership with Kirsten Gillibrand's office. We worked with both the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce and the senator to pitch Congress on providing some SBA funding back to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce to launch this program. We know Manhattan has the highest percentage of vacancy, retail vacancy in all the 5 boroughs. We know that, right? And that it's also one of the retail epicenters of the world. If you're a big brand retailer, if you're a small retailer in another country with big dreams, you want to come to Manhattan, and you probably want to come to Lower Manhattan at some point as you grow that business. And so the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce said, go out, find us 10 retailers that want to open up in Manhattan and run this educational program that helps them understand how to transition their business from maybe a location in another city or another country into Manhattan, or help them understand how to fundraise as a retailer or build a bigger brand, do all of the things that you as an entrepreneur, as a retailer need to do, and then have that outcome be a new storefront open in Manhattan. And we've run this program twice. The second program was funded by Wells Fargo, not the SBA, so we're able to transition out of public funding into a sustainable model. And we have 2 storefronts that have already opened here in Lower Manhattan in the Oculus. We have a ribbon cutting next Thursday that Senator Gillibrand will be at, and you are all invited to come as well and see more of this initiative in action. Next. And Fran, chime in anytime you want, but we will hear from Fran whenever you have questions at the end. Anything you want to add so far?
Nope, doing great, John.
I'm trying. Now, there are a couple of different things that can go into solving these problems for a retailer and helping them understand how to really professionally open a storefront in Manhattan. It includes the leasing process, pricing competitively according to your competitive landscape, your geographical competitive landscape, engaging the local community. It's become clear that retail can't survive just by having a great product. It's not like running an online business. You have to have programming, you have to have community engagement in order to create pass-through and actually create a sustainable business for retail, especially in Manhattan. Next slide. So just some of the topics that we covered in the program. And I keep saying this word accelerator, but what is it actually? So these programs were created by startup investors about 20 years ago in Silicon Valley and Colorado. There were only 8 of these programs worldwide up until about 2009. Today, there are 3,205 active accelerators in the United States alone, and we estimate over 10,000 worldwide. They are typically 3-month programs that find small groups of entrepreneurs, brings them into an educational experience together for those 2 or 3 months, and gives them the education that they need about running the business, growing the business, building a team, growing a brand, all of that other good stuff. The difference between an accelerator and getting a certificate at a university is the content is delivered by subject matter experts. So if you're hearing about fundraising, you're hearing about it from an entrepreneur who's gone out and raised $10 million. Or if you're hearing about negotiating a lease, you're hearing about it from CBRE. And you're hearing about it from the lawyers that they work with. And that cutting, that sort of on the ground perspective from people operating in the field makes the education that entrepreneurs get at accelerators super cutting edge. Going? Community driven, they're great at organizing community. So while we're only talking about, to bring this back to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, we only choose 10 retailers a year to come and do that program. But that's really impactful for Manhattan in general because of the greater ecosystem that emerges around those 10 entrepreneurs. Because they're each going to be finding new investors, they're going to be finding new product partners, supply chain partners, manufacturers. They're all going to be building their teams at the same time. And so quickly you have a multiplicative effect where there are hundreds of people that this program has touched within those 3 months. To have that kind of organizing function in the hands of a small team or an individual would never have that kind of impact this quickly. Trying to go faster. Am I going too fast?
No, you're doing great.
This is, okay. Examples of our economic impact can be measured by businesses opening up, businesses growing, intellectual property being created, partnership outcomes, job creation, especially. slide. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, so, the opportunity in Lower Manhattan. So we were brought, to your attention by Zach Palmer, who is one of the community board members not here tonight. Sorry.
District.
Oh,
Yes,
district
the
manager.
master. It's like the master.
Master Palmer. And, he was attending the big pitch event that we have for these founders every program, in Midtown, and he said, there's a lot going on in Lower Manhattan. I would love for you to take a look, see if something like this is possible here. We can't promise that we would work with you, but we would love your perspective on, what's available. And so, given the foundation that we have from running these Manhattan Chamber of Commerce programs, yes, there's a vacancy challenge here and it's more unique in Lower Manhattan, but that's especially painful for Lower Manhattan because of the incoming retail opportunity around the World Cup. So there's the Downtown Alliance has put forward a retail program that we support and may be involved with as well, where they're opening 3 new retail storefronts here. But this could be a similar or even amplifying effort. Obviously, a lot of walk-through pedestrian corridors and major demand. There are big brands here. There's a lot of money to be captured by the community. I kind of already talked about this. Anything to add on Lower Manhattan, Fran?
There you go.
Yeah. And so what would this actually look like for Lower Manhattan? Well, like I said before, it's a time-constrained experience for the retailers. So we would work together to find, or if you built an accelerator, the first thing that you do would be identify the kind of retailers that you want more of in Lower Manhattan. Maybe that's a lot of F&B. Maybe it's a lot of CPG. Maybe it's gyms and health adjacent businesses. Who knows? But you'd identify that target. You go out with your accelerator to collect hundreds of applications. You pick the best 10 to 15 retailers and then bring them into this time-bound 8 to 12-week program. Much of it is online. These experts that are driving the curriculum come from all over the retail ecosystem. We had CBRE speaking in our Manhattan Chamber of Commerce program, but we also had retail experts from the Middle East there as well. Active family offices. So all kinds of speakers are in this program. And then ultimately we want to see the leasing process begin. So connect them with a lawyer, connect them with a broker, connect them with a commercial leaser, and start pushing them forward into the community. Next. More about how we drive this impact through the program next. So what this would look like.
They muted themselves. Keep going.
Me? Okay. So the way that we would advance this conversation is right now, you would ask questions about things I've confused you about or that you want more detail on. You would have your own conversation about whether you think this is a good idea, and you would be available to answer questions about what could be possible, what would be a good idea, what would not. Maybe you decide not to do it, and maybe you decide you do. And then you might go ahead and look for other elected officials, partners in the community to come alongside and do it and be supporters. So like with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, we sought the partnership with Gillibrand's office, but the Manhattan Borough President also spoke at the pitch day at the end. And so it became a hub for a greater partnership, the accelerator. And then if you really wanted to get serious, I can't see what's in the last one. Oh yeah, consider passing a general resolution of support. And that's who we are. That's what we did with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. That's how we got involved at this meeting and what we envision for Lower Manhattan. I'm available to take any questions now. I also want to wait for Fran to comment if she has anything to add as well. Questions? Yes.
You're a for-profit company that does this service.
We are a for-profit company. Yes.
What do you do that a broker doesn't do?
what do we do that a broker doesn't do? So number one is education. So we're running an educational experience that's driven not by our expertise, but by the expertise of the industry. So again, retail investors, successful retail entrepreneurs, periodicals and other press that cover this, all come in around the entrepreneurs. We also go and find them. So the brokers typically, are competing, but they're competing with people that are raising their hand. The accelerator that we create creates a channel into a retail ecosystem that is reaching out and looking for a very specific kind of retailer to come in. And then the third is we're holding their hand through success as a business. So even if they open like these two doors that opened in the Oculus, they're still benefiting from introductions from us. They're still getting education and connections as they want it. Like we're a long-term resource for the entrepreneurs that get into the program.
And are your connections local or are they international?
Some are local, some we need to reach from, the highest levels of retail in the world. And so, if we want something super specific about Lower Manhattan, we're not going to go outside the city for that. But if we want somebody who's really savvy about raising a couple $1 million for a retail brand, then we want to find the entrepreneur in Paris that's done that. Yes, back there.
People.
Yeah, hi. Pardon if I missed this. I came about 10 minutes late. My understanding is you're focusing on retail and that's ground floor, maybe even second floor and storefronts. Why only that niche? Why not also focus on commercial real space, office space within a building? Because I think from a community Lower Manhattan perspective, we have a high vacancy rate. And that gives me more concern because from a customer, being a customer, I think retail we're a little saturated. And I think having occupied commercial space within buildings, upper floors, that would bring in more economic vitality.
Yeah, I only hit on that lightly before you came, so good question. It's where the process starts, right? You identify the kind of business that you want to attract to the program, and that's the kind of profile that you go out to the world and bring in through applications. So if it was going to be, we want more commercial leasers, then let's get more specific about how big that leaser is, what kind of commercial space they are, and scope them out really specifically so that we can advertise this in LA or Miami or Tokyo and get those applicants, get those people interested in this unique opportunity to come open up in Lower Manhattan.
Okay, so then this program is just for like ground retail space.
No, I'm saying
It's for within the entire
the
building.
example is retail because that's what we did with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, but it could be other. And don't forget, this began with tech startups.
I'm gonna jump in just to say, if you see the picture that's on the screen now, they came to the full board and spoke last month, if you remember.
Oh, Calvin.
Yep, they spoke. They're the place that opened up in the Oculus where the boxing gym used to be. So
The second one next week.
kind of ground floor retail, kind of not, because it's not street level, it's Oculus level.
And they're like a gym.
Mhm.
Yes.
I have a few questions. So this is part of the answer to that, but who are the retailers that you keep referring to that you opened in the Oculus? So they're one.
So Good Sport is one, the other is Breezy. And again, the door opens next
Oh,
Thursday.
it hasn't, yeah.
But yeah, they're a furniture store.
Okay, and you mentioned that you were interested, or that there's a possibility that you would work down here. But in that instance, who would pay you?
We don't really care about that at this point. Like, our mission is to have meetings like this, educate you about the accelerator, history of this kind of thing, what's possible for an economic development outcome.
Mhm.
And if it's something we all decide we want to do, then we figure out the money at a later date. So for with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
it was a multi-year process.
Yeah.
We were included in a bill that Senator Gillibrand submitted to the US Congress.
Okay.
It was voted on by the Appropriation Committee. The funds were released to the SBA and then released to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. We were one of a 5-wing initiative that they had created, so we didn't get funded, we only got whatever our costs were. And then once that funding was used after the first year, Wells Fargo came in and funded the second program
I see.
for sponsorship.
Okay.
And this was to research
Sorry.
and provide, this was to research and provide them information of what's missing and how.
No, we do that in the process of evangelizing accelerators. The money was to actually launch the program. So what kind of retailers do we want? What kind of outcome do we want the program to achieve? Go find those 10 companies, get them approved by the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce, run the program, get the doors open. So not research.
Wait, one last question.
Yeah.
So, I was curious then, as the retail landscape specific to Lower Manhattan is changing quite a bit, and as our demographics are changing as well, and we're having a lot of conversions from commercial to resi. And like Eric, I think I walk down the streetscape and it's depressing as hell because so many of our storefronts are empty and have been empty for so long. What do you think is the thing that ails us, and how do you think that it could be fixed in a targeted way in the way that you approach these?
It's a
retail
super interesting question because yes, it is partially connected to Lower Manhattan as a community. But what we're learning as we put forward more of these programs in retail is that retail is just getting disrupted.
Yeah.
Like the day-to-day of retail is different and
Yeah.
getting more and more different every day than it ever has been.
Right.
And so philosophically, part of the reason we're investing our firm time in going in this direction is because we believe retail businesses are going to be more fluid and more dynamic. They're going to be opening and growing and moving on from maybe their original spaces or throughout, new communities. And this accelerator can be a platform to quickly identify and get involved with those businesses while they are growing. Make sense? Doesn't have to.
Sort of, but it's okay.
I think for me, one of the gaps, even if you identify market gaps, we have plenty of enough space to have enough retail opportunities. The problem that I see that is cited by almost every small business that has closed in the last 6 months, and even chain businesses like the gym that was over by Church Street, is rent. And that is the one insurmountable odd that is unaddressed in this, because the reason why you end up with more chains and less small businesses is because they're the only ones that can afford the first, last, security, this, that, and the other, and the ever-changing retail prices. It doesn't seem to be something that's overcomable that I've heard any solutions on. And if you have anything within your accelerator program that addresses that, that'd be really interesting to hear.
There's no way for the accelerator to affect like broad affordability. It's more in the mayor's category, as he's made clear. But what it can do is serve as a fulcrum for experimenting with those policies and solutions. So it can be like a sort of choke point for experimentation in how we can lower prices or put forward different solutions to the community. Yes.
I just want to get back to Rose's question about fees. You said something about introducing the entrepreneur to money.
Yes.
You get a fee there?
We cannot without a broker's license, and we're not brokers. So we're a service company. We cover our costs and plus margin.
Do you take a piece of the business? So again, that's the tech model.
With tech companies we have, but even the tech companies, either those companies pay a fee or there's a government sponsor that pays for them, in which case we generally don't take a position. If we offer a space to a tech startup in one of our programs, and they say, hey, that amount's too much, then we say, well, we can bring it if you give us the warrants, so the opportunity to invest later if we want. That's the closest we get to taking a position. We're not a VC, we're not an equity investor.
Richard.
Richard.
Yeah, hi. How do you, so on the terms of, well,
just following on some of these. The first question is, how do you locate the businesses that that actually participate in this program? And do you vet them in some way, either before the program or during the program, for their financial viability? And of course, I'm following on here on Tammy's rent question, which is one that businesses seem to really stumble on.
Yeah. So yes, there's an application, and the application is different for every program, right? If making sure that these are companies that can afford rent is very important, then we will have questions about their GMV, like the amount of revenue that they're bringing in on a monthly or annual basis. If we care about what kind of business they are, then that will be in the application as well. We find the applicants through joint promotion. So a lot of it, you'll post, Zach sent us your newsletter. It would go in your newsletter. Businesses that are signed up would see it. We have a large platform for outreach. We speak with thousands of companies a year that apply to our programs. We use that platform to help find the right businesses. They may not be regional. They may be from other parts of the country or world. It's a big part of the value that we drive is that sourcing process. Because to do it in 3 months and then run a program in 3 months is a heavy lift. And then, yes, there is a diligence process. So everything that they say in the application, they then have to prove to us in the interviews. And that can include bank statements or, legal documents that prove ownership and different things like that. So by the time they get an offer, we know them very well.
Just want to add, and hi everyone, I disappeared for a little bit and now I'm back. We had some learnings also in terms of the sourcing and selection of the companies from program 1 through program 2. In program 1, because it was the first time getting it off the ground and promoting it, a lot of the companies had lower GMV than in the second program. And we're seeing already that through also selecting and sourcing companies that are doing higher amounts of GMV, we can also get to outcomes quicker. Because a lot of times what we're doing with these programs is really driving these entrepreneurs towards outcomes. And in the case of this one, it's opening a storefront. So that's a big piece of what we do is finding those companies. And that's through, as John said, community partners, both domestically as well as internationally. We had a company in cohort 1 come from Belgium and our partners there that want to set up and have the capacity to do so.
I think last thing on this question is one learning that we did achieve, as Fran referenced, is what is the minimum amount that a company needs to be making to have a serious conversation with a commercial landlord in Manhattan? And what we've seen is $20,000 a month. At that point, leasers are open to fractional or percentage revenue, or not necessarily 10-year leases or provisional leases. But as long as the retailer can come in with that at that level, then the landlords are willing to get creative.
I'm
And
just
to
gonna
also
state,
address, sorry, go ahead.
so just give me a chance for people who are attending, who are on the phone, if you want to raise your hand from your phone, you need to hit *3. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, and just to, in terms of, and I don't know if this was said, I may have missed this, but in terms of also the lease and the, having enough capital to do so, the other things that accelerators do is connect them to other people that have capital and investors. And then we also support the entrepreneurs in figuring out how to structure their finances and their pitch to be able to go out and seek investors, also bringing in investors to the program to interact as mentors. So the hope is that also, in addition to selecting companies that are of the right stage and size, is also helping them leverage the network towards getting additional investment to open up these storefronts, which I know, for example, Good Sport was able to successfully do.
Richard? You're muted.
You're muted, Richard.
Yeah, he's looking.
I know. Sorry about that. I might have missed this, but could you talk about your metrics for success and really what performance you've seen in terms of your business successes?
Sure. Do you want to hear that in terms of the retail accelerators or our company in general?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, sure, sure.
So, like I said before, over 900 businesses have gone through our programs in the last 10 years. That's 900 businesses from 50% are domestic, 50% are from the international arena. The top 20% of those 900, so 80, top 80, have raised $1.18 billion and are worth more than $6.7 billion. For our retail programs and small business programs in DC and in Manhattan, these two storefronts and the Oculus are our strongest outcomes. Good scores from our first cohort and Barisius from our second. And we really measure success on the storefront opening. There are many other things that we could add, like job creation or impressions from press or partnerships generated. And we do that in some of our other programs, but the real problem that we're trying to solve in Manhattan is vacancies. And so the only metric we're tracking is openness.
Great.
Thank you all so much for your
Thank you
time.
both for coming.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing what else you can open in Lower Manhattan.
We will.
Please send us the press release then, for the hours and stuff of the opening that you have up and coming, and, we'll share it with the board.
We will send that to you. You're all invited, and thank you for the time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
next
everyone.
we have, thank you. 50 to 58 Cliff Street.
You've got a huge team here, so,
Perfect.
I would suggest,
We can discuss for the.
yeah, I'm trying to think of, we have 2 seats available at the table, so feel free.
Oh, yes, I will even get up from the table.
Feel,
I could be just anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like,
whatever works for you.
yeah, it's, no, because they got to speak into the thing. I'm not
Exactly.
speaking about it.
So I'd say put 2 or 3 people forward at the table.
Yep.
That works, and introduce yourself, and group by group by group, and you could be in the front and you could be at the table, and I think you have slides, which I have.
Yes, we have the slides.
Okay.
Just open up Reese's.
There you go. Introduce yourselves and then, let you know when, oopsie, won't be there.
Okay, so
I guess I'll leave it short with them.
You got the chair in here? Over, probably there, because if you're hiding behind me, cameras won't find you.
Over here?
Yeah.
Better? Okay, beautiful. Okay, wonderful. All right, hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. And on the Zoom, Kaylin Bullock, Senior Project Manager with Settlement Housing Fund. We are here to talk about the 5058 Cliff Street development today. So we've got a pretty big team here. We can run through our quick introductions, and then we can jump into the presentation. We're going to kind of have 2 parts of the presentation. The first being more of a general development overview, and then the second being the brownfield cleanup overview from our partners here at Langen. So I'll pass it to Michael.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Gabriel. I'm the Senior Director of Real Estate Development at Settlement Housing Fund. Thanks for having us. I'll go to Debbie.
I am Debbie Hewitt, Managing Director of Housing and Homelessness Initiatives at Trinity Church. Should I go?
I'll ask you to rise, so it's got cameras that can catch you.
Okay.
Yeah, like old fashioned classroom, you gotta rise so they can find you.
Hi, I'm Natasha Litton with Trinity Church. I oversee our external affairs and government relations.
Yeah.
I am Elizabeth Atkins. I'm a Senior Project Manager at Langen Environmental, and I'm joined today by
Paul McMahon, Associate Principal with Langen, and Langen Engineering.
Hi, everyone. I'm Philippe Martelly, Associate Principal at Dapner Architects.
I'm Kate McNamara, project architect at Baton Architects as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm James Wong, the Director of Construction at Settlement Housing Fund.
everybody, I'm Tomas Osara, Project Manager for SHF. So.
Everyone, I'm Lee Johnson, associate at Trinity Church.
Awesome, thank you. So we will popcorn through some of our team members depending on the question. So we've got
Langen here, Datner Architects here, and Settlement and Trinity as well. So, and we'll popcorn through some of the slides with our other team members as well.
Sorry, and you were with
Settlement Housing Fund, yes.
Next slide.
There we go. So I'm starting.
Yes. Awesome. All right. So our agenda today is, we just ran through our introductions. We're gonna give a brief overview of Settlement Housing Fund, the site plan and history, some of the development highlights and overviews of the proposed site, and then go through some rendering. So that'll kind of be the first part of our presentation. We can pause there for any questions from the team, and then we will jump into our brownfield cleanup overview, which Lizzie and Paul will take over. All right, so here is the team. So this is an as-of-right development on 5058 Cliff Street, which is a property owned by Trinity Church. They did an RFP this summer, of which Settlement Housing Fund was awarded. So we've got Settlement Housing Fund here as the developers, Trinity Church here as the landowners, Datner Architects, our team members here as the project architects, Langen as our engineering firm running the brownfield cleanup program, and Precita, who is not here tonight, but they will be our general contractors on the project. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Michael to do an overview of Settlement Housing Fund for everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We're really thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to be partnering with Trinity on this project. So I will tell you a little bit about Settlement Housing Fund. So first and foremost, Settlement Housing Fund is a proud nonprofit. We develop and we are a long-term owner of affordable housing throughout New York. We've been doing that work since 1969, so for 57 years. And as you can see from this slide, in that time, we have developed over 9,000 units of affordable housing at 69 projects. We currently own over 3,100 units of affordable housing across 50 buildings. And in addition to our development work, we have a rich range of resident engagement services that provides services to formerly homeless families to make sure that they are stably housed in our buildings. So with that, next slide, please, Tammy. So our next slide here talks about where our geographic reach is. So primarily we have projects in the Bronx, in the Mount Eden neighborhood, in Brooklyn, in Crown Heights, and in Coney Island, and in Manhattan, in Harlem, and in the Lower East Side. So we really do a mix of projects from new construction to preservation. So most recently in June of 2025, we closed on 179 units of a building in Coney Island called Coney Landing. And then we just completed construction, a substantial rehabilitation of 693 units in West Harlem. And the renovation, the cost was around $145 million. So fantastic work. And then in addition to the development work that we do, really the cornerstone of that work is our community engagement process. So we are so grateful to have an opportunity to be here. In regard to this project, in the community engagement process, we've met with Council Member Marte, and we're currently in the process of reaching out to our neighbors. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to turn it back over to Caitlin. Thanks, Caitlin.
Thanks, Michael. All right, so this is just an orientation to our site here, which I'm sure most folks are very familiar with, but if not, I'm just going to kind of walk you down the slide to make sure we all know exactly where we're looking at. So if we kind of walk down Fulton Street and follow those red arrows, we'll hit the Key Foods and we will take a left on Cliff Street. And we will go to the corner of Squire's Diner, and that red square there is the site that we are talking about today, which is 5058 Cliff Street. It is directly adjacent to St. Margaret's House, and that gray kind of cutout box you see is the zoning lot that is owned by Trinity Church. In the middle, we have an MTA substation that you'll see is a bit wedged out there. And then if you follow the pedestrian street L, for purposes of the presentation, we are going to call that left side Cliff Street, though it is formally mapped as a pedestrian street, formerly Cliff Street. And then the other side of the L pedestrian street, we'll just call Beekman Street for ease of the presentation. Again, pedestrian street mapped. And then we'll have Pearl Street down here on the south, 250 Water Street, and at the north, 100 Gold Street. So the corner here is what we were talking about, which It's a very, very small footprint. It is only around 6,000 square feet. So wedged very nicely behind St. Margaret's House is the development site that we're going to be discussing.
Winter does work. It's the top one.
Okay, nice, wonderful.
All right, it's the top one, and it kind of buzzes, but yeah, there you go.
Fantastic.
If you hit it a couple times, you get different, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, the actual one.
Yep.
The
You
whole
got the
thing's
whole
working.
thing working.
Oh, amazing. All right. Look at that.
I have absolutely no idea how I. Sorry for Key, but.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so this is just a bit of a zoomed in image to what we were just looking at. Again, on the bottom of the screen, if you are walking down Fulton, we take a left there at Key Foods. We will pass the MTA substation on your right, and you will see the proposed development 5058 Cliff on the right in that red box. All right, I'm going to pass this over to Febia to give us a bit of a background on the site history. Is this good?
Sure.
I mean, this is.
Remember, the owls that are on the table follow you, so.
Oh, that's an owl.
Yes.
So as many of you may know, Trinity Church has been a part of New York City and a part of the Lower Manhattan neighborhood for over 325 years. Our mission is very simple. We work for justice, we serve our neighbors, and we build community. And we do that through youth programs, music and educational events. We provide meals for those in need, 20 weekly worship services. And another way that we believe that we can live that mission is through housing. And so 5058 Cliff Street, it sits right next to St. Margaret's House, a building that Trinity developed over 40 years ago to provide affordable housing for seniors. And so back then, I mean, that was a pretty bold step. And I think today we're going to continue that commitment in Lower Manhattan where new affordable housing is at very low supply. So across the city, and particularly in this community, affordable apartments are limited. Demand is high, especially for truly affordable housing, and evictions are skyrocketing. There was a recent reporting that in Manhattan, the average rent is now over $5,400 a month. And so that's why Trinity decided to dedicate the site to 100% affordable housing. In early 2025, we ran a competitive RFP. And we chose Settlement Housing Fund as the developer because of their deep roots in New York City, their proven expertise in affordable housing and supportive services, and their really thoughtful approach to this project. And so, we started with St. Margaret's House. We're going to double down on our commitment with this site and, try to do our part in expanding affordable housing opportunities for New York City and particularly in this neighborhood.
All right, so I'm going to jump into some of the development highlights of the building. So the ownership, as Michael mentioned, is SHF, a sole nonprofit developer, which, as you see many of these affordable housing developments pop up in New York City. A lot of them are joint venture partnerships between a very large for-profit developer and a smaller nonprofit developer who may be doing some of the more isolated marketing or services work. At SHF, we are very proud to have the capacity to be a sole nonprofit developer, which means mission is always forefront in the development and not any of the larger profit margins that some of the other developers may have as a secondary priority. This will be a 99-year ground lease with Trinity Church. So Trinity will maintain ownership of the land and SHF will have a 99-year ground lease for the development. The affordability, as Febia mentioned, is something, again, we are very, very proud of for this to be 100% affordable. It will be between 30 to 80% of the area median income. So in New York City, that means 50% of the area median income, for example, for a family of four is around $80,000 a year. 30% is around $46,000 a year for a family of four. So really serving A lot of the affordability levels between 30 and 80, and we have an average of about 54% of the area median income across the property, spanning 30, 40, 50, and 80% of the area median income. We have a required 15% set aside by the city for formerly homeless households into permanent housing. So again, this will be referred individuals from DHS who will be in our units in permanent housing, required by the city, but something SHF is also very used to supporting, and it's really one of our bread and butters of our organization is supporting these residents through our resident services arms, which a lot of developers outsource this service, but at SHF, we actually do this in-house. So we will have dedicated service staff at the building to support really kind of wholeheartedly our formerly homeless residents who will be in new permanent supportive housing. The units, so we are going to have 120 units, and it is going to be a 24-story building. So this will be stratified across studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms. We know it's a priority to have some larger bedrooms in these buildings. We really kind of had a balance between making sure that we could house as many new residents as we can and also have accommodations for families in our building as well, which is why you'll see studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms here. The 24 stories was selected based on a very long process of due diligence between both Trinity, our architects, and Settlement Housing Fund. As of right, this site could have around 43 stories in this building, how we have it set up with our current setbacks and design. We did not select to have a building that large because of many priorities and discussions with Trinity Church and SHF about fitting into the neighborhood context, fitting into St. Margaret's House, making sure that we could both balance maxing out unit capacity, but also not being a massive tower in the area. So that is where we landed on 24 stories, which allows us to pursue some competitive financing with the city, hitting that 120 unit threshold. So we will have social services spaces on our first floor, as I mentioned, to house our on-site social services staff. And we will have amenity space on both the ground floor, our 8th floor, and a roof space. We've got an amazing architecture firm, Datner, who's here today. We are in schematic design, so we still have much more to design on the building. But in our early design, we have, prioritized heavily this ground floor space to make sure it's a really opening environment as it'll be abutting up to the St. Margaret's House exit. And then also our own residents have a lot of community space available on the 8th floor and the rooftop for flexible events, community programming. We're hoping to have some food-focused learning with some other nonprofit social services groups that we will be working with as well. Some other features we wanted to highlight is that this is intended to be a Passive House certified design, which again, SHF is very proud of. This is not required in the city. And unfortunately, some of the funding dedicated for Passive House is potentially no longer available. So it's really a dedicated choice to keep this in the design, which is something both Datner, Trinity, and SHF feel is very important. And then this will be a BCP brownfield cleanup site as well, which we'll have a dedicated presentation on after this. Definitely want to highlight that our construction schedule, so we are not estimated to start until mid-2027, so a year and a half from now. And though this is an as-of-right development, we really wanted to make sure that we still keep you guys, let you know what we're planning, and can continue to give milestone updates as we have them, though we are still a ways out from construction starting on this site, with completion estimated in 2030 right now. And then I think we've got just a couple renderings here to show you. So I will orient folks again to the little purple individual on the bottom left. So that same fact pattern where we were walking on Fulton Street, we took a left on Cliff Street, past E Foods, Squire's Diner is right where that north sign would be. This is the visual onto the building from Cliff Street. So really trying to have an intentional design that keeps this pedestrian feel of these two streets, keep this very warm and opening, having landscaped as we can. We have still a lot of work to do on investigating the street trees and what we can keep and hopefully as much as we can. So you won't see the 3 larger street trees depicted on here, but a really beautiful design the team has done so far of this kind of welcoming ground floor space that you would see here from Cliff Street. So this walks the purple individual a little bit further down Cliff and kind of positions them at the L of Cliff and Beekman, so right at that Squire's Diner corner. Looking onto the building, again, you'll see the left side, that would be the entrance to the building. And then the elevator corridor you'll see is this really nice facade that we've called out here to try to have this really welcoming bottom pedestrian feel before the building rises up above that. And then we've got one more visual, I believe, here, which just continues down the L of Beekman Street, looking onto that other side of the building. So the rises right here would be a open space that would abut St. Margaret's House and our building, which would be egress for both of them, and really hoping to make a very intentional space between the 2 buildings that has green space and some space to have leisure between the 2. And I'll have we raise that so that there's more light that can get into that space as well. As we know, obviously doing this development with Trinity St. Margaret's House is a huge priority to us to make sure this feels like a very welcoming community space between the 2. And this is just one last visual, which superimposes the 5058 Cliff rendering here into the Google Maps images. So you'll see Southbridge Towers to the right, St. Margaret's House to the left, and that's kind of that same angle.
This
down
is St. Margaret's. This is the new building. This is,
That's a local observer in the area. He lives right by you.
Yeah.
this is building 6.
Yep. Joe, let her finish first.
I think we are actually, Joe, that's good timing. We are at questions, yes.
Excellent job. Really good job.
What is the as of right square footage of this building?
The as of right square footage, Philippe, help me out here, but I believe we have 181 square feet remaining on the site that we could develop, of which we are, what? Wait, yeah, excuse me, 181,000, of which we are developing 90, actually I've got that number right here. Yeah, so we're using approximately 94,000 of the 181 that are remaining. So that leaves approximately 87,000 remaining unused on the site that will remain with Trinity, not the settlement housing fund.
Just a couple of questions about the square footage and great presentation. Thanks so much. I know we saw something earlier, some of us. Did anything change since earlier presentation to the leadership of Community Board 1? Or is this the same?
This should be the same other than we finished schematic design. So there may be some marginal changes to the design.
I'm curious about the space between St. Margaret's and the building proper.
Yeah.
Are the columns the same width and scale, and there's no ability to pare any of that down? I remember that was something we brought up, is to enlarge that space. It looks like, did you add more height, or is that's
I think they're
set in stone?
They're pretty similar from what we saw, and based on what we have right now from structural, I think those are going to have to remain. One thing we did modify from our presentation is we had a ramp that was kind of snaking through a lot of that space. We're contemplating if we can minimize or remove that and have what would we call it? I guess a lift that could be the ADA, so that we could maintain more of that as actual green open space.
And how many square feet, how wide is that space?
Would you know, Kate?
25 feet wide. 25 feet. And how many square feet is the base floor terrace? Approximately. Anyway, I hope, if you say it's potentially going to use the roof, at what point will you know and be able to confirm whether those spaces can in fact be public, that being the roof and the 8th floor?
The roof and the 8th floor will definitely just be for the residents of this building, and if St. Margaret's House or people who are attending an event are joining, but they will not be public open spaces.
And just the base?
Yeah. The ground floor will also be private between those 2 buildings, so none of those 3 will be public open spaces.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Sort of following up on Allison's questions.
About the unused air rights, have there been any conversations with the neighbors to transfer those air rights?
Debbie, I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah, so those air rights are going to remain with Trinity and they can only be transferred on the zoning lot, and the zoning lot would be this parcel and this building and St. Margaret's House.
In Southbridge?
It's no, from our zoning analysis, it can only be moved within our zoning.
And no conversations with the city about moving it to 100 Gold Street?
No,
Okay, or 250 Water Street, across the street.
I don't think that's allowed for zoning.
Okay. And then my second question is about that 8th floor terrace, outdoor terrace. Have you given any thought to locating it on the south side of the building rather than the north side of the building? Because that would impact Southbridge less if you have lots of activity on an outdoor terrace.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if we've specifically looked at that. I mean, the terrace is not intended, I don't think, to have a lot of activity. It's not a massive terrace and there is an FDNY access that has to go through that. So it will be more lounge and it's adjacent to a multi-purpose room that will be more of the space of community gatherings, larger events happening in that space. So I don't anticipate the terrace being a huge party central out there, but I don't know if we investigated if it's possible to have it on the other side.
We did test that initially, and I don't know if you remember that, but the setback was split between two terraces. But because of all the constraints that we have on the site, it's a very, very tight footprint. It made more sense to concentrate the massing on one side and to maximize the terrace area.
Yeah, it's definitely something we can look at again.
Yeah,
with
the
that.
point being that the MPA is going to be more forgiving than the residents in Building 6.
Eric?
Yeah, from your photo, it shows that the building footprint would go all the way to the sidewalk, right? You know, to max, look, it's a small footprint, that's, I understand. But I'm concerned from what I saw is that when the building goes up, but then the windows, if anything were to fall out, there's no buffer between, you know, there's no like green space from the footprint of the building to the sidewalk. So with all those windows, if something were to fall out intentionally or unintentionally, it would hit pedestrians.
Knock all the windows, please.
But that's.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean, I think it is a risk. It really is. I mean, there should be some green area, some buffer area so that people aren't walking like right below the windows. I mean.
That's the entire city.
And I think that's a risk. It's something will.
That's the entire city though, Eric.
Something will happen. Okay.
Eric, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna start back because they do have setbacks where the terrace is. So, I mean, there's a big giant terrace there, so not every place.
Yes, just that corner, right, just that corner, but then the other two sides, it'll go straight up to whatever, 24 stories.
And so do the other buildings around.
And then,
But by code, there's a limit stop that has to be provided for every window. You cannot open the windows over 4 inches.
oh, okay. My second question is, so this is a new development, so that means the cooking appliance will be electric?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can the grid accommodate the demand, during peak season or even during winters, when there's, high demand?
Our assumption is yes. I mean, we'll make sure that we have all the required permits for the development when we start regarding utilities. But definitely something we will confirm. I don't know, James, if you want to add anything to
We
that.
will have our load letter prepared by our MEP in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
And we'll submit it to SONED and they will tell us.
Because at Southbridge, on the, whatever, the heat wave days, they tell us to reduce our power usage.
And I think too,
That's a lot of citywide, right?
just to piggyback on Cameron's talk about this being passive house, so I totally hear what you're saying, but we were really working to build an envelope so that it really minimizes the electrical demand. That's kind of a key piece of all of this, but obviously the point is well taken.
And last one is the garbage. Where, with all these residents, where will all of the garbage be? Because I see your footprint, pretty much covers the entire building, the entire lot. Where will their garbage be collected? And then where would it be, put out? I'm just concerned that that this needs to be considered, where the garbage will be placed, how it will be managed.
Yeah, definitely. I think James, right now in the cellar, do we have our?
Yeah, we have the compact room is in the cellar, and then it will be taken out through the lower garden level and up the side onto Cliff Street.
So the garden becomes the access to the garden. As you move down.
Yes, there's gonna be there'll be a direct door from the compactor to the garden space, but it'll be a very direct route up to Cliff Street. So the majority of the garden will not see any of the rubbish.
The way the garbage sits on Cliff Street, it's on the west side of the street is the garbage piled up from the supermarket. So now on the other side of the street, you're gonna have the garbage piled up from the building.
And yeah, there isn't current access beyond the supermarket. There are bollards there.
Yes, yep, there's bollards on both the Cliff and the Beekman side, so, we have just done our initial outreach to DOT, both just to approve our, we have to start talking through our site logistics plan and what that's gonna look like. We are actually actively starting to draft that right now, but DOT is gonna have to be in all of these conversations. And then making sure that we have emergency vehicle access to the building also. The bollards kind of start right at that MTA building on the Cliff Street side, and they go through the whole Beekman side as well. There are sewage caps and things that are on that pedestrian street, so the assumption is that FDNY can still access that right now, but we'll have to make sure in conversations with both DOT, MTA, and FDNY that we have all of the necessary access there. I think the specific location of the garbage we haven't worked through yet, but that's very good to know, both of those two things, as we kind of think through where exactly is that going to be staged and what does that look like on such a tight site?
Just Rosa. So a couple of things. Number one, thank you guys, because I think that the request for 100% affordable, or frankly, any affordable, is a discussion that we've had in our community for many, many years. I was on the 5 World Trade Center Community Advisory Council, and obviously the math doesn't math when it is a for-profit effort. And so I think the fact that Trinity is actually stepping up to create this in the community is huge. And I don't think that it would even be possible, frankly, without the club that Trinity has to be able to provide this. So I think that's like really awesome. I think there's, my question is specific to the permanently affordable housing for families, for previously homeless families. We obviously have great schools in the community, and that's been a discussion all along. How does that work if it's, if the families obviously have children that are, getting older every year? Like, how do they then have to leave the housing as their children get older and no longer need access to the schools? Or is it the children that define the family aspect, or is it really any age group? How does that work?
So it's a placement system run by DHS. It can be households or individuals who have experienced homelessness. So they will have their thresholds for what that looks like, and they'll have a process to kind of find the housing that best meets their needs. So there's a list of individuals who they have deemed have qualified and specifically who are appropriate for independent living and do not need supportive housing, because that is different than what we are doing. This is not a set aside for supportive housing. This is just formerly homeless, but individuals who theoretically need light touch services can definitely live independently and just kind of need that first place to have as their permanent housing. And so the family unit would be, could be a parent and their child, or 2 parents and their child who are going into one of these units. And then you would not be evicted for any change in your status as individuals are getting older. Michael, you can add anything to that.
So family when it comes to services, is a very different understanding oftentimes that community has versus DHS. So when we're talking community voice of looking for families to support, we're specifically looking for people who have children starting in kindergarten and up, because we have amazing schools and seats available. DHS often comes back to us and says, yes, it's a family shelter, adult family. And that's a different compound. It's not that we're anti-adult family.
Yes, and this is
Understand.
definitely not, and not a shelter, I think,
Even supportive housing,
but this isn't supportive housing either.
is it like a tier 2
So
shelter?
this is, no, so this is what the program, how it has been described, they call it the art space program with HPD, and that's our space. And so really, the term that we use, often you'll hear is light touch services. And so what happens is, HPD coordinates with DHS to facilitate the referrals for those units. We just leased up 8 of those apartments, in a building that we built in Crown Heights called Weeksville Place. And so,
It doesn't answer my question, but what's the terminology for family that DHS and you are using? Is it adult family or is it children?
It
So-
could be any of
it could be any, so we don't have,
It could be any of
If not limited.
no, so we don't have like in a supportive project, you could have like an option 1, 2, 3, 4. So we don't have like, oh, these units are specifically for young adults and like that, so.
Yeah, we have the unit size and essentially anyone that DHS says can qualify for that unit size would come and we don't have any say over it. So it could be 2 adults, it could be a parent and a child, it could be 2 adults and a child, it could be just a single adult, it could be any of those.
And that's for a 1-bedroom or?
Studio would just be the single adult. There's very specific qualifications. I'm not sure on all of them. There's like household compositions that qualify for both the 1-bedroom and the studio. And if they qualify, then they could get referred to
The
the.
studio is 1 person,
Uh,
1 bedroom.
Well, typically the standard occupancy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, a studio could be actually for 2, so it's usually 1 per bedroom plus 1 person, so a studio is 2, a 1-bedroom is 3 people, and so on and so forth, and that's kind of like your standard occupancy guidelines.
Will you have 2-bedroom units?
For the formerly homeless units, we have, so just to be clear, we have, I believe it's 18 units, so it's actually a very small amount of units, but it is required by the city. I'm not sure of the unit mix.
Yeah, it's required to be stratified over all of our unit types. So we would have studio 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Got it, thank you.
What are the light services that you guys provide?
So we would offer like referral services, meet with the tenants to help them get settled into the apartment. And really the goal is that as tenants get settled in, we give them the tools that they need to be successful. And then we usually imagine that the services can kind of be scaled back over time because they won't need as robust services as they begin to get more settled into the building. However, we are there to provide any of those, kinds of services. So these aren't like social workers. These are folks that are, getting referrals, helping with financial literacy, that kind of thing.
Helping pay rent if there's any issues,
Yeah.
helping with benefits if they needed a one-shot deal and they need to be connected with someone else, kind of helping residents navigate the very complicated system of just like living in a place for the first time. Sometimes that ends up bleeding over into more what you would think of as case management type services. That's not the intention, but obviously our team is kind of there and will support as needed. But the intention is more kind of as a connector and helping you facilitate paying rent and getting your benefits and having your logins and meeting with you on a regular cadence to be a person who's there as support.
So they're clinical.
They're not case managers.
Yes, and there's not the tenants don't come with the diagnosis, for example.
Now, SHF does do that work, but for this building where it's not supportive
Yes.
housing, we would have a specific team who does this work or who would be staffed.
Paul Goldstein.
Okay, the shared open space, could you just indicate approximately how many people it would accommodate at one time?
Yeah, and let me just clarify again, that shared ground floor space is not open to the public. It would just be for St. Margaret's House and this building. It would be an egress for St. Margaret's House. And then obviously all of our residents would have access there, but it would not be open to the broader public. Amount of people that could accommodate in the space, believe you haven't.
Specifically.
Oh, we're talking about the 8th floor. Okay, so that same thing applies to the 8th floor. 8th floor would just be for the residents of 5058 Cliff Street. Outside on the 8th floor terrace, do you have an estimate?
20 people, maybe?
20 people maybe?
So it's 200 square feet.
It's like a
So,
Three,
didn't,
500 square feet.
didn't your presentation say shared open space?
That is on the garden level, shared open space with St. Margaret's. 8th floor is just an 8th floor terrace space. But all of those spaces are for the residents of this proposed building. So there's no community space in the building. You know, it's obviously a private space right now and we'll maintain a private residence for this
Oh,
building.
but you don't envision any public space outside?
It's a 6,000 square foot lot, so it is extremely tiny. So there's barely even space to have an exit from the two buildings. You know, we're really trying to maximize and make that as lovely as it can be, the shared garden space that abuts St. Margaret's house, but the footprint of the site is extremely, extremely small.
But I think most projects include some community amenities. And
Yes, we have a lot of community amenities for this building. None of ours and most buildings we have worked on and are familiar with do not have amenity space for the broader community, though, you know, if there's events and folks are coming into the building, certainly, but that would be, you know, managed by the property management team to make sure everyone's security in the building is safe as, you know, you don't want unknown folks coming in and out of the building as standard in any residential building.
And to Caitlin's point, some of our projects do have what is called community facility space. And that space that's rented out to community organizations to provide services for folks, or to your point, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, but to your point, Paul, for the community, but to Caitlin's point, because of the constraints of this site, we just don't have the space doesn't allow that, like that community facility space that you're talking about. We do that at other projects.
Or like ground floor commercial space.
Yes, I know Caitlin worked on our Twin Park site in the Bronx, and I believe that site has community facility space, and also our site in Coney Island, but unfortunately, this one does not work there, but I totally hear what you're saying.
Richard, let's do last question with Richard.
Yeah, first of all, I want to echo what Rosa was saying. This community board has long been advocating for affordable housing in our district. And so it's just wonderful to finally see some things begin to happen here. So that's wonderful. First question, if I missed this, I'm assuming this is all permanently affordable, correct?
Yes.
There's no expiration to this. And then I'm curious about the financing. What level of subsidy is required for this, if there is any, and where is that coming from? How is the financing actually working to make this 100% affordable?
Yeah, so the financing on this is intended to be HPD, so Housing Preservation and Development Subsidy, which is the case for a lot of the 100% affordable properties. So we are in discussions with them right now. There's kind of a large due diligence process where they iterate on our underwriting and we go back and forth as we progress in the project to really finalize and put a fine tooth on exactly what that subsidy ask is. So we're really early in that process right now, but we have engaged with them. Also very excited by the prospect of this type of housing in the financial district. And then along with that, sometimes we will pursue smaller subsidy sources for things like passive house, or if we had other features on the project, we'll pursue smaller financing related to those, which we will also do on this project, along with 4% low-income housing tax credits, which we will also pursue. And that's one of the reasons we were hoping to hit that 120 units, both to have more units on the site and to be able to pursue the 4% low-income housing tax credit. So that'll kind of be the web of financing that we work through over the next year and a half to piece together.
And then in addition to what Karen was speaking about, because we're looking at the financing to be with HPD and HDC, HDC also puts in corporate reserves into the project to augment the HPD city capital. And then we'll also be applying, to Karen's point, to other sources. We hope to get an award of reservoir money from the council member and perhaps the borough president. So we'll continue to go through that process.
Great.
To what degree is the financing? Could that,
Richard, we're gonna
fall
come
on
back
rock?
to you. We're gonna let others speak first, because there's a lot of hands up. I apologize.
Joe.
What do you envision as the rent for a two-bedroom apartment on the 15th floor?
Asking for a friend.
All right, so the rent, so we've got 30% AMI, 40, 50, and 80. So for example, the rent for a two-bedroom at 50% of the area median income would be around 1,500. 80% of the area median income would be around 2,600. So it obviously stratifies based on the AMIs, but those are two examples at two of those AMI levels for two-bedroom units.
So you said between 1,500 and what? 2,000. 2,000?
2,600, even lower, well, actually not, no, that's a one bedroom. Yeah, for the two bedroom units right now, those are two examples. Yep. 1,500 to.
If you are joining us as an attendee and you'd like to raise your hand, please hit *3 on your phone or raise your hand through chat if you can. Okay?
Yeah. Just to follow up on Paul Goldstein's concerns in terms of public amenity, can you describe if you're doing anything in terms of a street improvement plan? Is there anything that's going on at the street level that you are looking forward to providing? I know we talked a little bit about those trees, but
Yes.
did you?
We did, I don't know, Kim, do you wanna?
Yeah, I think we're still
Yeah.
early on the
Did you
street
say
tree plan.
1,500 to what?
2006.
Thank you.
I think we'll come back to you guys with better, we're still kind of deep in what a street tree plan could look like, and also just starting to engage with DOT, and parks, and actually haven't gotten a draft logistics plan back, but hoping that's in my inbox in the next couple of days. So, I think where we're going to be staging things on the street and then what that impacts on the trees is kind of a cascading, event, and we just haven't gotten that initial plan yet to be able to better think through what that looks like. But
Seems like a critical element.
Yes.
And green infrastructure, those are
Yeah,
great opportunities.
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
yeah,
April and then Gavin.
April, you should be able to unmute. April, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
So let's go to Gavin and then.
Can you hear me?
Gavin, yes.
Just a couple questions. You mentioned working with DOT a couple times. Are you guys seeking any change to the fact that that is a pedestrian street and where it is pedestrianized to?
no, we will not be seeking that, and there's no intention of demapping those as pedestrian streets.
But you do intend to use Cliff Street as your load in and load out area, correct?
We will have to use some portion of Cliff, and or Beekman, during construction for the vehicles that need to come in and all the construction access. So there's kind of two parts to that. During construction, there will need to be use, and then there's post-construction just in operations.
I'm just speaking about operations, not construction.
Okay. Yeah, so there'll just need to be access for the emergency egress vehicles, trash, drop-offs. So there's the potential that where, cars go right now on Cliff, for some of that is enough, or some of them will need to go beyond that, and there'll have to be some type of coordination with there we go. With those ballers.
So you are seeking a change already in how Cliff Street operates. A delisted, demapped street you want to change in some way.
I wouldn't say that we're not trying to not make it a pedestrian street. We just need to make sure that the required access to the site is available. So whatever that looks like, that may be some type of.
Yeah, but that's your required access to the site. That's not the city's required access to the site. I mean, you're proposing a building that is attempting to change the pedestrian scape of our neighborhood.
James, you want to?
don't know if there's anything else to add on kind of what our.
I mean, I don't think, we're not gonna propose that cars be allowed to traverse Cliff Street and Beekman, you know, and return it to a vehicular use. The street is already required to have, emergency egress now. The only change, as Caitlin, points out, is for, logistics supporting the building, such as rubbish removal.
Which is not an
Which is
emergency in any way, shape, or form.
No, but it's requirement,
Corner of
requirement of
Cliff.
DSNY, yeah.
Then that's actually
Yeah,
not.
but that, again, you're building a building on a pedestrian street, attempting to create a place for your operations to flow through. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that this is under, like, you are changing a pedestrian street for your own operations. Not an emergency, your own operations. That's what you're proposing. The trash could come out on Fulton if you wanted to. You could build a corridor through St. Margaret's, where their trash already comes out.
We can't do that, actually.
Yeah, I don't know if
Why?
that's something that.
Why couldn't you?
Because they're two separate buildings, and St. Margaret's House is HUD funded. I think that would be. That would
You are
be,
saying there's access via St. Margaret's into this building. So clearly there is a combination between the two buildings.
I'm not saying that.
I would say,
There are two different properties, right?
yeah.
So
Because if the Department of Sanitation tells us that we're not allowed to use Cliff or Beekman in our negotiations, then we would have to seek an alternative route, but we haven't yet had that ruled against us.
So I think, I mean, let's hear what Gavin's concern is, right? His concern, if I understand correctly, is that it is currently a fully pedestrian street, right? If we were doing deliveries and things, we'd be having micro hub discussions and about, you know, tiny things that can travel on. But trash cannot do that. So the question starts to become is how does the operation of the building get trash out to a vehicle that is beyond the bollards instead of having the vehicle come to the building to the bollard?
Yeah, we have not,
To maintain the pedestrianized process.
yeah, we
That
understand this. At present, we have not yet explored.
It's an important thing to explore.
Thank you, they
Yeah.
will be.
Yep. Yeah, I think garbage at large seems, we will certainly continue to map out exactly what that route, both from inside the building to outside the building to the collection looks like.
But you're committed to the container, keeping of the containers in the basement of the building.
Yeah, we have that. Yeah.
Okay, so next was April. April, you should be able to unmute yourself if you're still here. If not, we're gonna, there's a 9175 and ending in 10. You can, your hand is up, you can certainly speak now. Unmute yourself as *6 on a phone.
Hi, this is Diane Stein. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get on Zoom, so I didn't see the visuals. But my question is, how will the construction and the building impact the residents of St. Margaret's House?
Yeah, do you want me to start? And yeah, so I mean, St. Margaret's House residents, they are going to be right there. And you know, we have Trinity. St. Margaret's House is in my portfolio, so I work directly with the executive director in my day-to-day. And so just, you know, between Trinity and St. Margaret's House residents, working with Settlement Housing Fund and making sure that while there will be an impact, that we are respectful of particularly the windows that are right there along the development site. So the timing of when construction will start and that sorts of thing, keeping everyone updated on what's to be expected in that, you know, that's when construction starts and the development process. So yeah, I mean, and you know, we are very aware that, you know, this is going to temporarily impact the residents of St. Margaret's House, but that's part of the reason why we chose settlement housing was because of the proposal and their approach to construction now, but I will have put some thought into.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think also just the close communication that we'll have at every step of the process, both communicating with Debia and with the residents is always super helpful. Construction is not fun for anyone, no matter where it is. At SHF, we are also really lucky to have a director of construction in-house, James Wong, along with our general contractor. And a reason that's been really nice is that you work with GCs and they're wonderful, but we also have someone in-house who really has the priority of SHF, Trinity, this building, in mind at all times to question, you know, all the efforts that we're putting in, the site safety plans, making sure all of our permits are what they need to be. We have the correct overhead protection, dust mitigation plans, et cetera. And as we get things and as things come up in construction, there are always curveballs. James and his team is wonderful in keeping the team accountable there. So certainly something we will keep in mind throughout the whole process. Very important.
Did you have a question?
Yes, were you also the developer for AD Medicine?
Please,
What's
please.
Jackie Wong? Were you the developer for AD Rutgers Street? And if yes, what is the status?
80 Rutgers is
80 Rutgers.
Two bridges.
Right.
Yes, we were the developer of that project.
And what happened with that project?
So are you talking about the new
building?
Oh, no, we're not the developer on that.
82 Rutgers.
We're 82 Rutgers. So that's our two bridges. That's 198 units. That was actually built in the early 90s. I think you're talking about the proposed development. Maybe the Excel was. Yes, that's not us. They were. Sorry about the confusion there. But a good question.
Jason.
Well, unless there's other questions, I was gonna try to do a wrap up, because.
There's just.
My question,
That's fine.
my question is whether you are in contact with, GFP, which is gonna do 100 Gold Street, with Tabros, who's gonna do 250 Water. The moment in time between 2026 and 2031, buildings are gonna be demolished, they're gonna be remediated, they're gonna be built. This is a very small area where all this activity is gonna take place. How will it take place?
Yeah, we have not been in direct communication with 250 Water Street team, or excuse me, 100 Gold or 250 Water as of now. I think when we go a bit further into DDs and some of our construction coordination, if that's needed, we certainly will, alongside Precita, our general contractors who have worked with a lot of these teams in the city. But as of now, we have not had any discussions with them.
There has to be coordination, even 40 Fulton, if I'm not mistaken, is going from an office building to be residential. So you're gonna be surrounded, or the people at Southbridge are gonna be surrounded by development for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something we certainly rely on our general contractors who, you know, do a lot of this in New York City in terms of the coordination of the vehicles and the logistics plans and all of that, that we'll continue to do with Precita as we develop some of this more, start talking to DOT, MTA, et cetera. But we have not had any conversations with them so far. James, anything you want to add there?
We haven't yet, no.
I think any conversation with what's happening on the larger, I guess, super block will come. I mean, that site was just designated and then we just had we have the administration change. So we haven't yet, but I'm sure that will happen.
Great.
One last one. I would just say, because we know of so many construction projects, your timeline and the required timeline if 250 Water is gonna retain its 421A, are very much the same. So in terms of,
Yeah, that's a good point.
you know, collaboration, where we used to have a Lower Manhattan Construction Command Center, which collaborated all the projects. In this area, I recommend more than any other area that Trinity, who I think, and the team can take the lead and do something really smart about, would be able to be a lead coordinator in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna be pretty, it's not gonna be easy, and it's all in the same block and a half.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion.
What is the time?
You have to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Betsy Neville Childs and I'm at Southbridge Tower.
Hey, Betsy.
Over 40 years. And this has been a community that is an anchor for downtown housing. We were the pioneers that came to this community when nobody else wanted to live there because it smelled like fish. And we have really weathered a lot in that time frame. So you really, I think the project is amazing. I personally have been involved with projects like this with TSINY and West Ham. So I am totally aware of what it's gonna bring. But you really have to think about the impact and the poor quality of life that the Southbridge residents are going to have during this period of time. We're not talking okay quality of life. I know when we were doing the brownfield cleanup at 250 Water, I could barely work at home. So many people work from home now, and this is gonna have a horrific impact being covered from south, east, and north. So timing, as Tammy says, is not the best. So
Maybe, if they all go up at the same time and they're all using sound curtains.
And the
Which
buildings
is-
don't shake and the cracks in my walls don't.
But the question for the construction team is what kind of sound mitigation, and what kind of vibration monitoring, which I think would be a conversation that we would have with Langen. Although we're talking brownfield, it leads into construction, right? That's, we see this in the construction work that's being done over on the west side. And they were strong asks, you know, they were strong asks that the community asked for then. Because you're working underneath people's buildings and windows, and so it'd be the same kind of ask. I didn't know if you wanted, thank you for bringing it up, I didn't know if you wanted to wait until we got to sort of.
Yeah, I think it's a convenience, if I may jump in just to say, and
There's-
Chair of Environmental Protection, I'll now take over and say, go for it on the brownfields,
There's
if we may.
One last,
I think it's still open to all questions.
Can I ask a question about the timing of 250 Water and the 421? When are they starting construction, do you know?
I'll take that question.
yeah.
The deal hasn't been closed yet. It possibly might be closed on January the 28th.
Right.
If the deal is closed, the 421A has been extended by our wonderful governor. Instead of expiring in 2026, it will now expire in 2031.
And they also have an LPC permit that would expire, so their timing really is your timing. We did have somebody online who asked to confirm that your design maximizes the total number of apartments, given what, versus, I guess, other spaces. And whether you're using all of your available FAR for the project. I know you're.
Yeah, not using all of the available FAR, I would say for the footprint that we have, we've got the required community spaces and the rest of that, trying to maximize utility rooms and everything in the building to maximize the unit sizes as much as we can, keeping that 24-story footprint that we have, which is not maximizing the FAR.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much. It was a great presentation. And the building has a beautiful entrance, thanks to them.
Thank you very much.
We have Langen coming up next, because we started with construction. After you introduce yourself, I'll start with the 2 appendix slides, if you don't mind. And then move to you.
Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul McMahon. I'm Associate Principal of Langen Engineering. I have my colleague, Elizabeth Atkins, the project manager, working on this project. Let's get it started.
I gotta share first, give me one second.
No problem.
Okay, there you go.
Okay. Oh, we've got that. Yes, ready up that one.
Make it moves. How you doing over there? Try the top button, see if it vibrates in your hand. There you go, you got it. It's got the power.
Okay. So Lizzie and I started working on this project on behalf of Trinity a few years ago to do some due diligence and say, prepared the RFP for affordable housing developer. We're excited to be working with Settlement Housing moving forward. I'm going to give just a quick overview of the Brownfield program and some of the community participation aspects of it. Lizzie's going to give a little bit of site-specific information that we've developed, that we've gathered so far, and then we'll go through some of the aspects of the program. So quick background of a brownfield, the definition of a brownfield, piece of underutilized land, typically environmentally contaminated, that's being proposed for redevelopment. So in New York State and New York City, there are different brownfield cleanup programs. The New York State Environmental Conservation and the New York State Department of Health operate the New York State Brownfield Cleanup Program, the BCP. And in New York City, the New York City Office of Environmental Remediation manages the designation program and the voluntary cleanup program. Between these two programs, there have been over almost 2,000 sites in New York City and New York State. In the Brownfield Cleanup Program, which started in 2003, there have been 715 completed remediation sites. Just to give a sense, I'm not sure if I'm standing in front of this, but in New York City, this is a map of all the BCP sites that are in New York City, excluding a couple of boroughs here. Wanted to highlight Manhattan. As you can see, a lot of times, the majority of the brownfield sites are along waterways typically. That's where a lot of the former industry was. And so there's a lot of contamination along those waterways. But any type of historic industrial operation, dry cleaner, or things such of that nature can result in subsurface contamination that would be cleaned up through one of these programs.
What's the white versus the orange?
I believe that's closed versus open. So some of them are unknown. So the brownfield cleanup process, one thing I want to highlight here is that this site is not actually a brownfield site yet. We have to submit an application to New York State to review the materials that we've developed so far, phase 1 to phase 2. And they determine eligibility. They do that by looking at New York State has established soil cleanup objectives based on the intended use of the site. And then we look at soil samples that we've collected and if they exceed those thresholds. I want to mainly highlight here a couple of things. This line represents the two phases of the BCP cleanup. One is investigation. And then after this green line is remediation and then site management. So we're very early in the process. We're going to submit the application and then the next step is to complete a subsurface investigation. Also want to highlight the community participation aspects of the schedule. So after the application is deemed complete by the Brownfield, by the New York State DEC, there's a 30-day public comment period. So the public is allowed to comment on the application. In our case, we're going to submit both the application and our proposed investigation work plan. There will be an opportunity to comment on those documents. Throughout the process, there are individual moments where there will be fact sheets released to the community. I'll highlight a little bit of what goes into that. So, quick overview, the Brownfield Cleanup Program, there are multiple regulatory documents that govern what's required in the program. And part of that is citizen participation. So there are two main types of citizen participation within the program. One is public comment periods. So the application and any work plan is subject to public comment. Those public comment periods are either 30 or 45 days. And then public notices also go out. So anytime there's a document that's been deemed complete by DEC, there's an investigation completed. If there's an announcement of the public comment period, there's a public notice released. So typically, the DEC will create those public notices. They call it a fact sheet. So it might take our report that's 600 pages and give you the information that you need to know, which is what type of contamination was found and what's being done to clean it up. The application will include a site contact list, and that site contact list is a living document. It can be added to. There are certain requirements for who is included, including community board. So we reached out initially to the community board to confirm that there'll be a repository for documents. Document repositories include the community board, public library, and then really nowadays everything's online. So there's really easy ways of accessing all the documents through the online repositories that DEC maintains. In addition to that, on the DEC website, there's a button that you can click called DEC Delivers. You can sign up, and there's a bunch of different questions that you can answer in order to determine what kind of information you want to get. You can get everything that they release. You can get things that are in the neighborhood. You add your email to the contact list, and then you start getting notices from DEC. That'll pass it over to Lizzie to talk about the site specifically.
Thanks. So as Paul mentioned earlier, there are brownfield cleanup program sites all over New York City. These are a few that we've highlighted in downtown Manhattan. 561 Greenwich Street was another Trinity project that we had the pleasure of working on. And all of these have been either remediated or investigated and have been completed. So as Paul also mentioned, we started our involvement with the site by preparing a phase 1 environmental site assessment. It's a desktop study. We get to look at a lot of historical maps, aerial images, database reviews, and basically distill down, are there any potential historical uses for the site that could have resulted in contamination of the subsurface? So as you see here, well, maybe you see, back historically, the site was occupied by 3 4-story buildings. Those buildings were occupied by a mixture of commercial and manufacturing tenants, including an essential oils manufacturer, a boiler and tank manufacturing company, a metalworks, and a few other commercial uses. In the 1970s, those buildings were demolished, and the site was primarily used for vehicle storage or parking until it was later converted into a rear yard for St. Margaret's House, where it serves as egress and tenant space. As part of this phase 1, so we did identify some historical uses that could result in subsurface contamination. So the next step was to perform a limited phase 2 environmental site investigation. So this is when we're actually going out onto the site, we're collecting soil samples, groundwater samples, soil vapor samples, and figuring out what's there. So for this limited investigation, we performed a geophysical survey, which involves scanning the ground for any subsurface utilities, potential anomalies that could be an underground storage tank, debris, refuse, basically pockets of unknown things underground. We advanced 4 soil borings, and we put in 2 temporary monitoring wells and 2 soil vapor points. We then collected soil, groundwater, and soil vapor samples and took a look at the results. We prepared a phase 2 investigation report. During the investigation, soil did not contain any evidence of petroleum contamination. There were no odors. The soil wasn't really stinky. There was no staining, but we did identify non-native fill. So basically soil or fill that was backfilled at an unknown time. That typically is all over New York City. It contains concentrations of semi-volatile organic compounds and metals. Those compounds are really typical across New York City and soil. The concentrations at this site were a little higher than what's typical. So we do recommend additional investigation and remediation of those as part of development. Those compounds in soil, it's important to know they're not mobile, which means that they're not likely to migrate off-site. They are, that's SVOCs and metals. And then we also sampled soil vapor. Soil vapor contained very low levels of petroleum-related volatile organic compounds. So low levels of petroleum vapors. The concentrations were below any action levels that would warrant mitigation by the State Department of Health. Based on the results of this investigation, we do need to perform an additional investigation under the brownfield cleanup program. So we are proposing a remedial investigation that will further investigate the historic or non-native fill that we identified on the site, and then collect a couple more groundwater and soil vapor samples. Back to Paul with that.
So, as Lizzie summarized, we have a little bit of ways to go in this program, but the goal of the program is protection of public health and the environment. So, throughout the remedial investigation and remedial action, there are plans that will be put into place, reviewed by DEC, approved by DEC for protection of public health and the environment. So one of those plans is the community air monitoring plan. So anytime there's any investigation of soil or movement of soil on site, there will be perimeter air monitoring. Depending on the activities on site during investigation, we'll have community air monitoring, but that work is typically limited to just the drill rig and laying field staff. Once the remediation starts, it'll be appropriate site security set up, truck washes, erosion sediment controls, and in addition to that, DEC and DOH is anybody who also involved with 250 Water Street. They're very involved throughout the process. There's daily reports submitted the next day for any activity on site. They stop by the site and they're very involved in the process throughout. In addition to that, part of the goal of that of all those plans is keeping everything on site. So there'll be erosion and sediment controls, and then there's specific actions that need to be taken to prepare for storm events.
Oh. Oh. So what are our next steps for this site? So as Paul mentioned, we just applied, or we're in the process of applying to the brownfield cleanup program. Once DEC reviews, accepts that application, and the site's enrolled in the program, we will have something called a remedial investigation, basically a beefed up phase 2. We're going to collect soil samples, groundwater samples, and soil vapor samples all again, but with those protections in mind for the community. And so this is just some photos of what it typically looks like. There's a drill rig on the left that's collecting soil cores, and here's a very happy Langen engineer collecting soil samples, likely the beginning of the day. And then this is just our overall proposed schedule for the brownfield cleanup program. As we said, we are planning to apply to the site to the BCP in the next month or so, in the next few weeks. And then the actual investigation would be happening this summer in June, and then the actual remediation would be happening a year later in June of 2027. With that, I think that's all we have today.
That's great. Thanks very much. Is there any way that you won't be accepting the program? Like what is your sense of this?
So we did actually have a meeting with DEC to introduce the site to them. And they, their take from that the data was, should make the site eligible. So we expect to be accepted.
It sounds in the way you're presenting is somewhat benign. Does this affect the economics of the whole project in any way that's consequential in terms of the tax implications and the like, who's the advantages underground?
So in New York City,
Can you speak up? You're facing that way.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead and answer.
so the brownfield program does provide tax incentives for the cleanup. So in New York City, the affordable housing development is eligible for those tax credits. There are restrictions in New York City, depending on the type of site, to certain tax credits under the program. Because this is 100% affordable, this will be entitled to the BCP tax credits for site cleanup.
Right, so my question is, the project could still go ahead if for any reason it weren't part of the program?
Yeah,
The financing is not established because. We'd have to supplement with more city capital and figure out some other gap sources if we didn't have this, but there's a version of this project where we don't have this funding source and we would still finance it. But obviously wonderful to have this source in the project. Right. Okay, Michael.
Alice sort of anticipated my question on the choice of going to DEC instead of OER. Was that Langdon's choice or the client's choice? And effectively why? What was the logic behind it?
Typically, when sites go to OER, they have something called an E designation. It's assigned to a site, so it's not as voluntary. E designations are assigned to sites as part of rezonings. This is an as of right development, and it doesn't have an E designation. So the choice to go to DEC, it provides a couple more benefits to the developer, and it's a good option.
And then my other question is, isn't there a history with the MTA next door? Didn't Edison at one point have a whole power plant in the early 20th century there? And there was the first street lamps and things like that.
In this specific, corner site, none of those uses were there.
I think that
was. But the
I
substation,
mean, it was across, it was at 40 Fulton. And, or, you know, who knew what they were using back then in terms of that or whatever.
right, so the remedial investigation that we'll perform, after we're accepted into the program, will fully evaluate, heavy metals, those semi-volatiles I mentioned, petroleum-related compounds, and the full list of compounds that we could see, including PCBs, polychlorinated biphenyls. Those are typically associated with maybe some of those uses you mentioned.
Thank you.
So these tanks, they're boiler tanks, they're not actually oil tanks. There's nothing like a 250, there's no oil tank.
So, in terms of the boiler and tank manufacturer, the buildings at the time were primarily commercial. So there was I don't have the name in front of me, but the manufacturing company was based in Jersey City, and had their offices here. So it was, an outpost, but they weren't necessarily manufacturing them there. And they were selling them there. And then in terms of below grade, whether or not there's tanks, we typically always find at least one on a site, given New York City history. So there was one geophysical anomaly that could be debris, it could be a tank. It didn't immediately, scream underground storage tank. So there might be one, but further investigation is needed.
It was interesting to me, you commented this is relatively typical what was found on this site, and you might find this on any site that you were to do this on, right? But this is worth it to the group at large because of some of the obvious financial gain. Okay, I was just curious about that.
But yeah, so like they were typical compounds, but at higher concentrations than what are typical. So
slightly higher, it sounds like, yeah.
Magnitude higher.
Right. I mean, it's nothing like 250. Which we've established Paul is, I reckon. Paul is working on it, thank you for all that. Okay, are there other questions? Yeah.
If you are online and you would like to raise your hand, it's *3 and let us know.
Looks like not. Up. Eric.
I have a question. I was reading online that the DEP is requiring building owners or of houses to ensure that water from rain does not go into to the combined sewer system. But how would this work with this building? I mean, there's no greenery for this building, so that means the water from the roof collected would definitely go into the combined sewer system.
So it's more of a civil engineering question, but Langen is also working as the civil engineer on the project. So in New York City, you're required to do some sort of stormwater mitigation, whether that's through green infrastructure, like a green roof, or like a holding tank in the basement of the building or elsewhere. I'm assuming, given the footprint of this site, that there's going to be a detention tank in the basement of the building. And that will basically slowly release the water over time, instead of overloading the sewers.
Oh, so, okay, wonderful.
There is going to be a detention tank.
Oh, thank you.
And green rooms.
Yeah, me.
So community air monitoring is fantastic, but the devil lies in the details of how often it's reported and how accessible the data is and what the notification system for the public is. Much like it was across the street at 250 Water. So this being even less across the street and underneath people's windows and right at the back of St. Margaret's, which is a very vulnerable population. What is the plan for that kind of information? Because of course don't want to speak for the public, but one would assume that people are really looking for the same kind of transparency, access to data. It's fantastic that it's Langen because you know exactly what we're looking for.
That's my expertise.
Yeah. You've got the experience in 250 Water. So what I need to understand for the public is how does this project differ in terms of your community engagement? And since we don't have at the moment an independent community monitor working with Langen, how open is Trinity and settlement housing to that kind of dialogue based on what you're going to tell us?
So this is why we're here, right? To have these types of conversations and incorporate those types of things into our project. As far as the notifications that are daily reports go to DEC the next day, so that information is getting provided to DEC and DOH.
And the community board?
Right, so again, throughout this process, we can, we'll have to make sure DEC and DOH are on board with that, which I'm sure they will be. But it's a team game here, so we're working together. We can make sure that type of notification system goes into work plans.
How is this different from 250 in your estimations?
So,
Both projects.
yeah, so 250 Water Street had a more extensive industrial history. There was a thermometer factory that resulted in mercury contamination. There were underground gasoline storage tanks. So we looked at the Sanborn map. And you look at the Sanborn map for 250 Water Street, it says 4 gasoline tanks. We also observed during phase 2 for that site that those gasoline tanks had spilled and there were impacts to the subsurface. In this case, we've done we did a phase 2. It was limited, but the site is limited in size. So there are no similar types of impacts in coverage.
I just wanted to make that crystal clear for the public at large.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. All right, I think it's somebody else, that's it? Okay, so Team Cliff Street. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really interesting and helpful, and I'm sure we've seen more of some of you. So anyway, that group is released. The group that's still hanging out with environmental protection for the Fide Seaport Master Plan, good conversation. If you don't mind sticking around, those for you to talk. And thanks again, everybody.
If anybody in the room is going to follow them and ask questions, I ask that you do it down the hall. Down the hall.
So I can. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Hopefully we've got the. No. Okay, so I was gonna go quickly here for those who are still with us. This is just a kind of primer for looking at the part of the Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Plan. We haven't really dove in yet in terms of details and a resolution, which is the Fide Seaport part of this. And Tammy suggested, so the EDC and the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice will be coming next month, but it will be the day before our full board. So we felt we should prepare ourselves a little with schematic understanding of what you might want to be including in a resolution on this, because we will definitely be writing one in February. And so we're just going to go through these, this presentation, which we received in November, you see here, but it's not yet been presented. So I'm not about to do a presentation, but we will go through slide by slide just for you to get familiar. And I did do a schematic draft of a resolution. I don't have to share it with you, but I've divided it into sections. So if you have comments tonight and you'd like to have jotted down in anticipation of next month, that I'm here to do that. And you can take a look and sort of get a primer. This, of course, is available to you at any time.
It's been circulated twice.
Yes, so that's what you'll get. So let's just go through here. So there's nothing here that's particularly new. This will all be included in the whereas clauses of any resolution, which is, of course, the history we all know and the acute need and such. And this is nothing that we're going to go through tonight. Yeah, keep moving along there. Yep. And then, the climate threats and the cost of what it means if we don't. And then we come to the master plan and the project itself. And I guess that's like you could stop on for a second, which is to somebody's community. Oh, it's locked. That's something I have to apologize. Sorry. Not getting out so easy, Carl. So, the master plan, the key design elements, and I've included this in the resolution, or I have included, I'm suggesting we include this as to what is the reason behind these plans. And so in short, it's to protect lower Manhattan from daily towers flooding and coastal storms, integrating climate resilience infrastructure, and enhancing the public waterfront experience. And there'll be we could acknowledge community engagement that has and hasn't happened. And then we move on to plans themselves, I think eventually, we'll get to. Yeah, so that's critical, and I will include that. I think we should in the resolution as an image, so we all remember. And so what I did, and you can let me know if this seems like not a good idea, but I've divided it between the southern tie-in, the ferry hub, the harbor view park, excuse me, and the seaport piers. So you can see them in the green circles, 1, 2, 3, 4. We've already written the resolution on the southern tie-in in November. You might recall that has been reviewed. And I think we did a pretty good job, very comprehensive. So now we're on to the part that goes from the ferry hub all the way starting to go north. So those 3 other sections. Not to say you can't say more on the southern tie-in, but that is what this resolution is going to cover primarily. And so, we start with the ferry hub. And you should be starting to look at that very carefully. I mean, you don't have to have a presentation to understand what's being suggested, and it's written here, that there's going to be 4 slots for a new Staten Island ferry terminal. Look at the scale of this building, look at what the building is offering in terms of a roofscape. How does it, okay, that's a very good shot of it, right? You're looking to the left is the Staten Island ferry with the 4 slips. And you're looking at Governor's Island Ferry and the 2 slips. And then you're looking at to the right or to the north behind is the Battery Maritime Building and what that is becoming. And, these are big questions for us, they're enormous. And I think each piece, you may have feelings about what you'd like to see, what does work, what doesn't work. And I'm happy, as I said, to jot some of that down tonight, but of course we will have Diana, probably Sweet Tie, and a few other people presenting in February, but at no time like the present. So if you have anything about the ferry hub that's burning right now for you to talk about, let's talk about it. And Tammy does. Let's go, Tammy.
Well, I'm just bringing in feedback that had been given to us prior. And one of them was when we're looking at the extensive green roof, we have been told that that is not publicly accessible in any manner, shape, or form. And that the only public accessible would be the quote glass atrium that they have that extends. They could look at the Governor's Island Ferry Terminal to see if that was possible, but there's no public access. So I think that's an important note to have here, that people don't have access to that space. And if you take a look to the right, where they don't list it and say anything, it is just a giant cement wall for the Battery Maritime Building. So they're just walling in the Battery Maritime. I look at and say, with so many smart engineers, why can't we find a different way to protect the Battery Maritime instead of cementing the entire thing in, so we can save those quote shade credits for public space and retaining other piers. So just looking at the top slide with the water, those are concerns that I have, because it also, you're very much saying the Battery Maritime building into the have and have nots, right? It becomes, you can walk, you have the publicly accessible walkway around the back, but the entire building is privatized, period.
I have both those in, and that those are, I agree 100%.
I think we may have addressed some of those in a prior resolution. I'm not saying we don't need to address it again, but we may want to go back and look and see what we said.
Absolutely.
We may want to say exactly the same thing again, but if we're going to comment on this.
I think, yeah, certainly I know the rooftop access. was
As well as the Maritime Building, I know we
Yeah.
certainly didn't like what they had presented in
Yeah,
terms of that wall.
it's a really good point to get those out as well. I changed it. By the way, here I have the southern tie-in, if anyone wants to look at that, but I did not.
Well, I think we need to acknowledge the issues they've identified, especially on the roof of security, but they've got a lot of time to think about this. And as you say, they've got smart engineers and, it's a shame to not have it accessible. I see Laura's got her hand up. She's probably gonna want to talk about the same.
Yeah,
issue
oh,
with
good.
retail stuff.
I didn't, hi, Laura. Oh,
Hi.
Laura.
I
How
just
are
want
you?
to, yeah, I just want to follow up on that. I think it's critical to be able to have continuous green from the battery floating up onto the roof of the Battery Maritime, I mean, of the Staten Island building, and then around, because, like, that's what we need as residents down here, is to stay in green space and not have like a morsel of it here and then more pavement and more cut off views. So I think we have to push really hard for that. Like when we did the big U, we had the green going all the way on top of that building so that the public could enjoy the best views in the city, really, out to the harbor. Like, why should that be restricted?
100%, yeah. It appears in the previous resolution on the Southern Tie, and it definitely should appear here as well. It's
I
absolutely.
think, yeah, and I think we have to emphasize even more the meaningful continuous green, because there's just so little of it. Like Hudson River Park, you have to go out on some of the piers. There's like little strips of green, right? Battery Park City doesn't have like that much immersive green. The Battery has immersive green, but that MNLA plan takes a lot of it away with that forecourt that's paved and now blocking the views with this building and cutting off the circulation through green is a travesty. With it's like we have this opportunity now to give Lower Manhattan its Brooklyn Bridge Park, and we're not doing it.
Yeah.
Here. I would say that's in front or behind the building, because when you're looking at both of them, it strips.
When you go to Brooklyn Bridge Park, you have a choice of where to walk. It's wide enough that you can weave in and out and around bioswales and have vistas, and it's continuous. And we should insist on that. Even if we're going into the water more, or even at the expense of the FDR Drive, like I feel like we're not pushing for the park that we want down here.
100%, yep. Got it. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, from this image, did they say what's gonna happen to the FDR underpass? Because I don't see it here, and
You're past the entrance to the underpass here. This is already underground. The underpass is below this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is agnostic on that.
Yes,
They're making the island bigger.
yes.
And intentionally, is it for parks, or do
No.
we know if it's gonna be?
No.
No, well, why don't you pull up the first slide, Tammy, because that's really pretty much the clearest
It's
one.
for resilience reasons,
Yeah.
but it's.
No,
Like they are,
keep going back.
it's one block, right?
There you go.
that they-
So it's about, 90 feet out at the highest, at the
250.
widest end. 200 feet, 290,
250 feet.
Okay, sorry. So you're seeing what really is talking about, and when they call it a Harbor View Park, that's very difficult to swallow, because really what you're looking at is a very large ferry terminal. It's really a major transportation hub. And you're not seeing a great deal of park, and this has been pointed out many, many times, particularly by anybody who showed up at any of these meetings, Taffy and me particularly.
Sorry.
No, so, it's a really important point.
I also want to note that
You've seen that,
Well, Eric brought up transportation, and I want to note that they told us very specifically, and I remember it, I will ask again for Diana, that that Blue Highways was going to be around Pier 6, around the heliport, and Pier 11 wasn't an option, because we had asked them to slide Pier 11 further south to have a whole commercial area between the ferry hub, and the heliport and Pier 11, and they said they couldn't do that. And they issued this report, and at the same time, the Blue Highways report was issued, and Pier 11 had a 2-hour demonstration currently this past 3 weeks ago, about how it's going to be a Blue Highway destination. So we have 2 reports out. One says we couldn't do Pier 11 as Blue Highways, and the other one is talking that Blue Highways is dedicated to Pier 11. So there's a little bit of
lack of clarity.
Yeah.
And this is all done via EPC?
This is EDC, yeah. Did you ask that?
Yeah, this is all done via EPC, so theoretically, one hand is not talking to the other there, or is it all the same hand?
Betty explained to me that the pilot for Pier 11 was they didn't want to wait however many years for Pier 6 to be ready. So they were piloting on 11, but if you're doing 11 is possible, so why couldn't we have 11 in the part of this plan farther south to be able to truly create something that is incredible for the public? I mean, look at how much residential growth we have and telling us that you can stick an expansive view from here to there. And there's no public. One of the things that resiliency does allow is community use opportunities. And so we could have a dive school. We could have some kind of boat program, depending on what the boats are. There could be an educational facility that's built in here, but there's none of that included in the resiliency plan, which are all allowable. And then the other question I had was there's shade credits. And I understand, and I've been told, and David Sheldon probably can speak well to this, is in Staten Island, they're swapping shade credits around by moving things around.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, so
It's like mitigation offsets. They have a mitigation bank for that. We should, this is a good place to use some of that.
Laura, can you flesh that out a little for
What is
us?
shade credit?
Yeah, what is it?
Sunlight for the fish.
Right.
In other words, that's part of the little ecosystem, is the amount of sunlight down there. If you board it over, you've killed it.
Right, but they have, EDC, they have a bank. I believe they have a bank of, like, some parts of the city, they gain water to create a bank for areas that need to impose on the water. Right? So
yeah.
I would say, given what's at stake in FIDI, the value, the benefit cost analysis of protecting the gazillions of dollars of real estate and financial vitality down here, that, this warrants doing what we need to do to get the urban design and open spaces that we need. And there's other places where they can mitigate.
Amen.
Can you, just to keep going, because we're doing it, how much, so the ferry hub is what we've just looked at. And then each thing only gets 2 slides, hopefully we'll have more in February. That's Harbor View Park. And, here, to Laura's point, it is an outrageous amount of hardscape and very little that's green. And actually, if you look at the dimension of the park up to the, I guess that would be the west, right? It's tiny. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the entrance, which I'm sorry, respectfully, it's just hard to believe. If you took away the river, you could put that thing in the middle of Indianapolis. I mean, it's irrelevant that you're on the water. There's absolutely no sense of water there, or, I mean, it's a complete hardscape.
It's just, it's like so urban. We're not being immersed in nature. It's like a few decorative.
I know.
Could I say it's rather mall-like?
Yes.
So I just, some of these images are sort of sobering.
Beyond that, I do want to point out that what they've done, and I'm going to go back to where they have it listed in that top picture. I think that the Lower Manhattan and the public at large deserve a great, we have been on record saying we didn't want 19, we wanted to keep 15. We know the South Street Seaport Museum is not interested in what they offered, even though they told us that was one of the reasons. The South Street Seaport Museum would like to stay where they are. And we lost 15 entirely in this, and we lost the opportunity for more public space. They call it a cove, that little push in the Harbor View Park. So if you come down, they built out only for the ferries. That's it. It's the only reason that they built out, as you can see. This is the cove. Why are we losing? space.
Will they tell you that they can't, that they're not allowed?
The US Army Corps
The
of
US Army
Engineers
Corps
strongly
allows them,
restricts
right.
any
That has to
expansion
do
of
with the
this
shade
water.
credits, and that's what they told us, they didn't have enough shade credits to keep it out. Well, we wanted to keep Pier 15, there's no reason that it needs to be demolished, truly. And then there's no connection to the water. You're just looking, there's no nature, there's no connection, there's no touchdowns, there's nothing.
And
It's,
which I might add, from the water, there was no connection to the land.
Yeah.
There's no possibility of putting a boat there. And I'm not talking about, some cranky party boat. I'm talking about something we might actually like having there from time to time.
Do you see solutions here that, should be considered on that point?
I still think that we should be
I'm
pushing.
just asking.
So some sort of pure facility, water facility could be provided for now, even if it's decided not yet to use it. The thing is to be, if you're gonna build there, build it in now. It's a lot cheaper, it's a lot more effective. Use is another question. You might have to agree that certain things will not be, we do not want a party boat there. But
Using on the new piers too.
along that cove, you can't get a boat near it
There's nothing here that supports maritime use.
of any kind. And if you wanna call it Harbor View, you can look, but you can't touch.
Yeah, to call it a park is also a bit of a stretch.
On Pier 15 and 16, by the way, I filed a Freedom of Information request
Yeah.
for engineering studies because the person whom I was told to communicate with here during that meeting where they discussed everything but the seaport, after a couple of weeks apologized, said, could I call you? You gotta put in a FOIL request. So I did that. I received the response. The EDC had received it. By the end of the month, we should get an answer. The point being, we have seen no reason whatsoever why 15 and 16 have to be destroyed.
Right.
16 needs some work, but 15 is brand new. essentially.
15 went up with 17, and 17 has been
17 is new,
resilient.
and 15 is new, yeah. 15 wasn't built to the same specs.
In fact, the bump out that they show you where the cove is the back end of 15.
Yeah,
We also, okay.
and I just want to offer for the record a piece of geometry. If you build the shore out, you have effectively shortened the pier.
Okay. Yes, Michael.
I think that in the resolution, we should again affirm that we don't want to see housing on Pier 6. And refer specifically to Housing Manhattanites report from the Manhattan Borough President's Office, which proposed 9,900
Yeah.
units. All right, it's
Resiliency.
2023.
So I'd also like to put in here that because we keep being told by EDC we can't use the word park because they can't be building parks under resiliency. So we have to use the terminology that we want for a different verdant pursuant to what Laura's saying, resiliency plan that actually pushes out as far as it can.
But they call it that, don't they? They call it Harbor View Park, don't they?
It's not verdant.
Well, I'm just saying they're referring to it. It isn't something we.
On the Hudson River side, they call it
Harbor
continuous.
Park, there it is on the
Right.
slide. That is how they are.
On the Hudson
designed.
River side, they call it a continuous walkway.
Well, we
Esplanade.
could call it a greenway. We could call it a greenway.
So,
Yeah.
but when you take a look at it, it's all about esplanades.
Yeah.
It's not about park.
Park, yeah, no, that we.
Right, so I mean, but we could go on record saying we want the water line further out, the defense line further out into the water.
Well, that
To redo the water line, so we don't end up with a cove, just cement, and that we want verdant.
Yeah.
Can
But
we
what
just-
is
we want,
the
like, resilient
legislation?
bioswales along the whole perimeter, and that we want, we actually want flood mitigation infrastructure built into the perimeter, so.
What's Snow
That's
Solutions
what we
not
want the
part of
perimeter
it.
further out.
The oyster bays
Yes.
and things like that.
Unclear
But
to
what,
me
what
if
is the
what is
park
absolute-
legislation? I mean, East,
Netta's next.
Just a second, Netta,
Sorry.
go ahead.
It's unclear what's absolutely necessary and
Yes.
what is an addition from EDC or it was comments from the meeting. So it would be great if there's a diagram that says we need this, but we're getting.
Well, you're looking at what they're claiming you can't do more. Like we've asked numerous times to do exactly what we're saying. Have a soft edge, have it green, have it out further so that there can be an actual recreational field. I mean, one of the things the community desperately needs, we've all talked about, is a playground, a large place for people to recreate. All of those things are not in this plan, and we have definitely asked for that numerous times to Jeff's point that it's definitely in early resolutions. But they claim that cannot be done because simply stated, U.S. Army Corps will not allow for anything further out into the water. And, you know,
However,
that's
However, what we don't know is the shade credits and what we understand now, because we've done some research about what they're doing over in Staten Island. It's a little jinky to say the least. I have a funny feeling, because they're looking to redevelop the areas over in Brooklyn, that they're actually not allowing us to have more shade credits here because they're doing infill over on the Brooklyn side. But that really screws us on this side where we have a
Right.
once in a lifetime opportunity that they're not allowing a different vision to take place on how to make resiliency. They're sticking with the water line that they want. And, you know, we used to have piers 11, 12, 13. So Michael and Kramer and I were talking about how supposedly the shade credits from that went to the expansion of the Esplanade. But what we don't know is, were there any shade credits left over? Because we haven't gotten that answer. And where are the air rights? Because there were air rights for every commercial pier. So those things would be great to understand. And the reason is because it would give us more ideas for funding other things, because the last thing that they come back and tell us is, you can't do it, it's gonna be too expensive.
Yeah, there may be air rights over the ghost piers.
Yep.
That we haven't even discussed.
Question.
Yeah.
The Army Corps of Engineers precluding building that cove out, is that due to shade credits or the pier headline?
They told us shade credits.
Okay. I can contact some of my friends on Staten Island and see what they know.
Yeah, because they told us that they were infilling everything around the Battery Maritime building, which took up a large portion of shade credits.
Rosa.
So actually, I want to ask if Laura wanted to go first because she was trying to speak earlier, but then I
Yeah.
definitely have some.
well,
Okay, Laura, you wanted to finish up. Sorry, you got cut off, I think.
well, for one thing, maybe they shouldn't fill in so much around the Battery Maritime building and make the Staten Island Ferry so big and jutting out into the water. That's one thing. But what, yeah, now I forgot what I was, what is the issue with the Army Corps funding a park? I mean, East River Park was federal money and it's all park. I don't understand.
It wasn't so much the funding, I mean, partly, of course, it's funding, but it was about the regulatory aspect of building out into the water any further into the water line. That was what I remember now for, frankly,
Oh, but
for
I thought
many
you said
years.
we couldn't call this a park, like, and that's why.
That's what
they're calling it.
That's DEC said you cannot build into the water for parkland sakes. It is only for resiliency measures.
Yes.
That's what they've said.
So
why don't we just call it a greenway?
Yeah.
And
I
say.
see. Well, I see. So if they don't need, I get it. Well, but
And to
still,
give you
okay, even if they don't build out into the water more, this whole design could be much more green. I mean, it could be green the way Brooklyn Bridge Park is green. Like, just imagine overlaying Brooklyn Bridge Park on this, and it wouldn't be all this concrete.
Right, that definitely seems like a fair ask to say the least. Yeah, Rosa.
So number one, when I look at the ferry hub rendering, I have to admit, it makes me really sad, which I know we can't put into a resolution.
Absolutely.
But it is a little depressing, and I do, when we look at the site plan, for the overall sort of perimeter, I do understand that while it may make me very sad, it is directly adjacent to the battery. And that right beside this sort of like, what looks like a wide swath of white, concrete is beside that is this beautiful lush green space. And so, yes, that's what makes
Can
me
we
sad.
call it Soviet-style
So,
architecture?
Brutalist.
Brutalist,
So-
that's exactly what I was thinking. I
So-
put it just hot and.
So, I mean, what really bothers me about it is that it really does divorce any experience. You're walking behind the building for so long and you're totally
Exactly.
divorced.
Yes,
That
that's
is
what
right there.
exactly.
So, yes.
The scale of that building,
Exactly.
it's immense. I mean,
So I guess.
we've spoken about that too.
I know we have, yes, we have many times. I guess my question is,
You'd never know there's water back there.
yes, so my question is, if we could accept that because it's right next to the southern tie-in, which is a beautiful park, which is going to have direct view to the water and all of that. Is there any way we can layer on some of these uses vertically, so, or stretch them out a little bit more into the water there, so that then we get the benefit of having more water connection and access? Like, for me, that you have both the ferry hub and then you have the ferry terminal, right, not that far away, and then you have the heliport
Yeah.
situation, and then you have the Battery Maritime build, like
Okay,
that.
go back. So you're talking about they moved Pier 6 slightly south, I think. So you're talking about moving the ferry terminal further down that way as well.
I'm
so-
wondering why they can't integrate it, frankly.
Well, they did a little bit, because we pushed a lot, and we did get the integration of those two ferry
And
terminals.
why can't the heliport just go on top of this ugly new concrete building?
That,
Why can't we have more access, more expansive access to the water and more connection to it, instead of having like thing after thing after thing that just keeps interrupting and blocking the view and experience of the water?
100% agree.
So I'm guessing, why can't we just like,
So we asked them in the pop-up shop about why Pier 11 had to be where it is and its shaping. And they said they thought it was important to have street views. And I said, but it's one of the most rapidly expanding thing now, and it doesn't have street views. So what difference does it make to have a big giant concrete thing at the end versus being able to come to the end and just be able to connect down to the water?
Yeah.
There was no really good answer on that. And I don't see why that whole thing couldn't be moved south. I believe, if I remember correctly, you are no longer allowed to have heliports on top of buildings.
why?
I think it was after the Pan Am
yeah.
problem where, with the helicopter hitting the building, that there's some rule about that.
Well, we asked if it'd be anywhere else in the
Right.
5 boroughs of the city, and we were told, no. That absolutely had to stay right where it was, which I thought was so
It's a landing
extraordinary.
point for the president.
Right,
of the
it's
town.
the safety, security, all these things, I couldn't believe it.
Right now, they're doing drone trials between Pier 6 and Brooklyn, Monday through Friday.
Okay, how about the ferry terminal? That's not, sorry, not the ferry hub, but I guess what's the one? No, the
Pier 11.
The Pier 11.
Yeah.
Pier 11 is not a building, really, they're just canopies and walkway. So can the canopy, basically all of that infrastructure, go underneath the heliport? And it's not a building, it's not
I
occupied,
didn't see why the whole thing didn't get moved down, so you'd have the heliport, Blue Highway ferries, everything just, exactly, and then expansive opens,
yes,
resiliency.
yes.
Yes.
So we just make that happen?
Well, we've been talking about, I mean, I brought that up like 7 years ago, I think at this point, that's been talked about a lot, and they keep coming back with what you're seeing. So at a certain point, we have to now, and that's what this updated meeting will be interesting, have to again review why this is, that the critical interest in the same things we talked about, and I'm 100% with Jeff, I'm gonna pull out all the resolutions. I think there weren't that many, but this point has absolutely been driven home a lot. And look, it's not as if these designers, many whom you know who are tremendous designers, are trying to do the right thing here. So, how much can we put pressure on the powers that be that actually have control regulatory control of this to make something change. What we're talking about, whether
How
it's
much
that,
work has been done already? In other words, are they up to 30%?
that's.
30%.
So
That's
I'll
gotta be a
stretch
whole lot
down.
of the answer.
And here's, you
It
know,
is 30%.
where they come and say, what's next? And quite frankly, if they get to permitting and environmental review, we get nothing. There'll be no changes from that point forward. Because once they go through environmental impact and review, you're done. There's no changing of any of the water line. You could change some of the surface stuff, but you're not getting a verdant green rethought area.
I mean,
And we'll lose 15 and gain 19.
I think you have to really decide as a board, you all have to decide as a community, what is it that's really the priority? Because you're not going to get everything, and you have a lot going on in these plans, and there's an immense amount that we're not even talking about, the pump house, these buildings that we don't really exactly know. The famed new market site, all this stuff is happening, and this is an immense project,
And they
so
cut the new market.
how it knits back into the city, no one ever talks about it. So we've got a lot of fish to fry, and not, as you're pointing out, a lot of times, so I guess we really have to prioritize in whatever we write or do, a little bit of what we really are
But the
prioritizing.
question is, are we being heard? Or are we
Well,
just checking off a box?
I think that we are at an opportunity with the new mayor to be heard to a better level.
I
think,
totally
you know,
agree.
what-
We have to push. Or we'll,
What
like,
they've
what's
done
the
at the
point?
Bridge
That's why we're
Beach.
here, is to push for what we,
Exactly.
that's the whole point.
Laura, I mean,
Just to say, Jeff, just because let Jeff have a word in there.
Yeah, I following up on what you were just saying, Alice. I mean, we should ask for what we want, but they do say they're at 30%. I think we should prioritize things that we think that we can actually get. You know, such as more greenery, and, you know, getting more greenery is gonna be a lot easier to get than causing them to build further out into the water. That's not to say we don't ask further build out in the water and make reference to shade credits and whatever. But I think we want to avoid a situation where they say, oh yeah, they're just saying the same thing they said before, and we've already considered and rejecting that, and then they miss some of the things that actually can be changed from their design that we may care a lot about.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to evaluate because I remember years ago, it was like fantastic where they finally agreed to the board's pushing to consider that Coast Guard site as a real place to push everything, right? That was not in the earlier plans. So I always hold out hope that some of this somewhat utopian sounding thing could actually happen. So I think, yeah, that's what
I
we're
think
working
we
on.
need to show them that we can save them money, for one.
Mm-hmm.
And one would think that grass costs less than concrete.
well, you gotta have some, you know, you have to have somebody who's willing to manage it, which is
To
another
maintain
story,
it.
but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other issues that I have at the end, the northern end, is it completely cuts off any kind of connectivity with anything that happens in the northern end. We're not getting the Brooklyn Bridge Beach that was completely promised to us at all. It's a walkway that's however many feet above the water, and I just counsel you to walk everybody to go over to Pier 36 and see 35, what they have over there. And it's in complete disrepair because they have an overlook. What are you overlooking? Stones that they put in the water that are mossy, and there's no education, there's no programming, there's no stewardship of anything that's around there. And I think that's the problem, is EDC did not look at any of those opportunities. And all the work that was done for the Brooklyn Bridge Beach, they never saw, the current designers never saw any of the work that was done for Brooklyn Bridge Beach.
I think one of the things we can stress is somehow this extraordinary turn of events in our neighborhood where it's become primarily now residential.
Exactly. Yes.
Very different neighborhood, right, than it was
Yes.
when we saw a tremendously different neighborhood. And I think that's something that the Mamdani administration would be sensitive to, and his interest in equity. Whereas where these people are going to have their children play. I mean, there's like, we have needs now, and then that didn't exist 12 years ago. when this
And we
began.
have somewhere between 15 and 18,000 new units of housing.
And I think that's a really critical point that we should be drilling down on, because I think that's fact, and I don't think we actually have really accommodated.
Can I go back to a point David was starting to talk about? This, the words town, a town dock are the words that are important to me. What do you think of that, David?
Depends on where you put it. You don't want to put it where Brooklyn Bridge Beach is.
No.
You don't. Everybody who I know knows those waters says, don't put it there. It's for professional mariners only, current regulations. You could put a town dock further south. One thing I've been learning is you don't have to put everything everywhere. You might put a town dock on the west side. It's not
Exactly.
that big a walk.
Right,
But there
exactly.
should be a town dock in Lower
So
Manhattan.
we need a people's pier.
We have,
Pick up and drop off.
we have nothing south of 25.
Yeah.
But I think
There's
we have to,
absolutely-
yeah, I think we have to prioritize the big moves versus the little moves, like I always refer to it as like, what is the suit and what is the accessory? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if
I
we
would
don't,
argue, however, that waterfront use, maritime use of the waterfront is not an accessory.
And quite frankly, maritime use of the waterfront and the public's use of it is something that is covered in everything. And they told us that it has to be one of the approved maritime uses. Well, maritime use includes education. So you could do some kind of a boat school there. You could do a dive school. We could build out, over by Brooklyn Bridge Beach, a dive school. There's so many opportunities of what could be done, but nothing was included or even left as an opportunity. There's no birthing opportunities for public. There's no educational opportunities for public. There's nothing for the public or maritime use.
And there are going to be in the coming year a whole lot of tall ships coming to New York City. They're actually building temporary facilities for them. You would have an awful lot of those ships coming to New York if there were a place for them.
And
Temporarily, the state-
emergency services might also use.
Yes, emergency services. Remember when Lower Manhattan was evacuated?
Very well.
Right, we can't tie those boats up anymore. There's no place to do it. There's steel fences in the way.
Well, can I suggest that everyone shows up in full force on next month, but in the meantime, writes down all of these thoughts and also goes over these documents and others that you know of and really starts to accumulate information that we put forth to.
Would you recapitulate that meeting schedule and the agenda?
Oh, it's February 23rd, am I right, Tammy?
It's the last Monday in February.
Yeah, which comes right before.
The best thing that you could do to be really helpful is take your comments that you've raised this evening and send them by email in. We'll match it to what was said on the video, but because it's right before the full, it gives us the opportunity to put it into bullet point form for that meeting. So it's a summary of everything that's said. And quite frankly, I mean, we're all volunteers. The copy and paste versus listening to a 2-hour meeting is significantly easier for.
So what's on February 23rd?
Same time, so the Environmental Protection Committee, 6 o'clock, yeah.
And who's coming?
I'm assuming, yeah, EDC and Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, who has a new head honcho I read today.
And before that, you would appreciate some bullets.
I think, I mean, I've started to do a little of my own, taking a lot of people's thoughts and things we've talked about. And so it would be great to have as much as Tammy's pointing out ready.
Do I need to do anything about the Seaport Recreation Center or? are we
Yes.
ready?
Absolutely, because.
We're on record and all that kind of.
Well, yeah, but Michael, most people don't realize when they see it on the master plan, you and I both went to the pop-up to now understand that they cut the size of the potential new market site down to put storage on the waterfront, which we don't want storage on the waterfront. We want.
Well, can I ask something of everybody here? Like, what are the top 3 things or asks, the plans that we now see that we want to ask for? Like, if you were gonna
No Pier 19,
talk to Mayor Mamdani, what would we be asking?
no
for?
Pier 19.
Change the water line.
Okay, wait a minute. Not everyone has to agree on the topic.
I don't know that I care about whether there's a Pier 9.
Keep 15 and 16 as that.
I will tell you
I
that
don't think it's
ISA and
that
and the
understanding.
housing groups over there are fallaciously
And
against
what's
it.
that?
What is the issue with Pier 19?
The issue
It's
is
a
the
party
party boats on Pier 19.
Okay, so it's not that you object to the pier, it's that you object to the use of the pier.
And it also becomes part of the Blue Highway.
That's what I'm trying to say.
No, it was supposed to be for private charters, private boats. It limits the availability to have the Brooklyn Bridge Beach because it's close. And would then limit what is able to be built there.
Okay, excuse me, because we all want to get out of here right now. I'm gonna do this, if no one minds. I'm just gonna ask, if you don't mind, just the top 3 things that you'd like to see in this plan. I know that might seem like a stupid exercise, but it might help me just to try to sort of synthesize. So Michael.
More passive recreation space,
Mhm.
more active recreation space indoors and outdoors.
Why
People's
indoors?
Pier. Because we want a Seaport Recreation Center.
But does it have to be on the waterfront?
At the new market site. It's pretty much been promised to us already.
Okay, you get one more, Michael.
I'll pick up the maritime.
Okay,
Okay, and no Pier 19, yeah, saving 15 and 16.
save 15 seconds. Okay, go ahead, David.
Additional facilities for maritime use. Of, let's say, historical nature. Historical and public maritime use.
That's it?
Public or community? Public, technically, tour boats are public.
I'm just trying to avoid another commercial and party boats.
So I think that needs to be the,
Okay, so that you're only having one on your menu. Okay,
That's my plate, yeah.
okay, good. Eric.
I don't know enough about this yet, but I'd like to know, somebody said 30%. Is that design phase?
Yeah.
30%. I'm gonna research this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's a contest question, just sort of like from the heart, what you think. Jeff?
Oh, I will add a second thing. No reduction in South Street Seaport. Periods.
Okay.
Well, if you build out in the water, you're by definition reduce those piers.
Yeah.
So you're saying you don't want to build out into the water?
No, I'm saying it. They're proposing to demolish 16 and rebuild a different shape of it, which is less pier space.
But if they
And
kept,
they're gonna do away with 15.
but if they kept keep 16, you also reduce. But anyway, my priorities are more verdant park area, including the concept that Laura has described as sort of the constant greenery from Battery to the ferry area. Public access to the green roofs of the ferry building. And the ability to touch the water in some significant part of the area, whether it's Brooklyn Bridge Beach or elsewhere, and whether it's a beach or something else, but the ability to touch the water.
I agree, green space and recreation, more recreational, both center it.
Okay. Rosa?
I would love to see sort of permeable treatment.
Say
as
again?
Permeable treatment, on as much of this as possible, if we can couch that as a climate-friendly, resilient alternative with cisterns, et cetera. But the idea, it would be translated into normal speak, would be more green space.
you have to
That
be
we
careful
could
because the
actually,
pavers are permeable, so you're talking about
Yeah.
permeable green.
yes,
correct?
permeable green space, through as much of this as possible and with areas that are contiguous. Specifically thinking about utilization for active recreation spaces, and larger sort of like community, like basically not the strips.
Right, like
Of
a place,
constant-
not a walkway.
Yes, a place and not a walkway would be wonderful. to me, the condensation of these things that block us from the water is hugely important to me, because there is no, how do you get into a sense of like what the place is when it's constantly being interrupted by thing after thing after thing? It's like there's no place. Sorry.
View corridor.
An experience corridor, like not, I don't even like the word corridor, but like a place. Not a passageway, but like a place. I want a place for our community to gather. I think that's really, really important. Where you're not constantly inundated by the sound, and the activity of like the ferries and the helicopters and the other ferries, and then all of that other stuff, like an actual peaceful place on the water for people, would be the thing that I would really, really love. Was that just two?
No, I think you have.
Well, and then, no, and then obviously to me, I think that the fact that we have a naturally occurring sand beach anywhere near us is sort of like mind blowing. And to think that we could actually access that and use that, is really poetic. And so I would love, and the fact that it happens to literally be under the Brooklyn beach, I mean, how much more poetic can you get? You've actually got Mother Nature shoving sand under one of our most iconic landmarks. And so I would love to see that open to the public, so you don't have to like, do a death-defying fence jumping act to get there. And I think that would be lovely. And that's it.
I love it. This is really helpful. Yeah.
I would say for me, it's green space too, but I would point out what you pointed out earlier about we have so many kids in the neighborhood, and there's so many families, they need a place to play.
Yeah.
For me, that's number one, and number two would be, I don't think part of those are appropriate.
Yeah.
I think we need to be careful, because they did find two spots where they said they could stick in a playground. But again, sticking in a playground doesn't solve the needs of, multitudes of people.
Yeah, you want year-round recreation.
And you want it for all ages. I'm sorry, but your kids are only like playground age until like what, maybe 7? And then like what happens, what are we doing with?
Where's my basketball?
I mean, there's not one field, like you can't have
Yeah.
one ball game out there. If
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, I don't play ball, but I still see
There's
something
no-
out there that's.
there's
Some
no-
other
it's
people
ready.
would like to talk.
All right. yes,
Laura
yes.
has her hand up for a long time.
I
and-
do? Oh, well.
Go ahead,
She
Laura.
might be old, but
She's, but,
wait,
Second hand.
wait, is that my hand up or down right now?
Now it's down.
Now it's down. Okay, well, I second a lot of the things Rosa said about like definitely continuous green. And when you think about playgrounds, we don't really need a playground there. We need nature, right? Kids can climb on boulders and enjoy being outside. Like playgrounds are for little interstitial inland spaces where, you just have to put something for the kids. But, like we have enough playgrounds. To we need to have things on the waterfront that you can't have other places, and that's continuous
Yes.
green and views and all the stuff that we already said about the ferry terminals. We need to really drive that home. And you know what? So what if they're at 30%? Like ESCR was at 30%, and they switched it all up and redesigned it. And those of us who are architects and landscape architects, how many times have we redesigned stuff at 30%, at 50%? I mean, they should just get it right.
100%. Amen.
Yeah.
all right, Joe, happy New Year.
And then you have Ushma and you have Gavin.
Okay. Joe. you're up.
Okay. I think we do need a year-round recreation place. Not open, but year-round. I'm hesitant on the beach because I'm afraid too many people for too small a place. And that might cause a lot of trouble. And the third thing, we do need a lot of greenery.
Great, well, there's certainly a lot of consensus here. Ushma, hi.
I'll do it. Hi. Sorry, I agree with Joe. I really like the idea if we could have like a community center.
I always am going by the Tony Dapolito Center on Carmine, you know where it is on Carmine and Bleecker, and they're gonna tear it down. And we were having
Get
this
rid of it.
conversation. Yeah, and we were having this conversation in my family of there's nothing really on the west side. So if they're doing all this building, why can't we create some indoor spaces as well where people can use it? I mean, they've started to limit Stuyvesant, you know, for public rentals of basketball courts and stuff like that. So I
You
think that'd
know,
be great. And I
there's-
do believe in continuous green. Like there's too many walkways and not enough places where you can plop down.
But guys, I hate to say this, but if you insist on a community center on the waterfront, you won't have continuous green. It's really narrow.
A fair
You
point.
know,
I'm asking for
and
too
there's
much.
so many buildings. Well, if we want a community center, we should get the developer to put it in the base of one of the buildings, like, you know, where Manhattan
100.
Youth is, and it doesn't belong where we can have continuous green. I gotta say that I think that might be a mistake.
Fair point. I guess I'm trying to conflate two things.
Yeah, but I think we have
you
to be very clear here, because if you start asking for buildings, they're going to happily build this up and then maybe put housing on top even. Like, I think we have to be really strict about what they put on the waterfront.
Laura, this is replacing the new market building.
Yeah, we're only replacing the new market.
That's all
But
they
we're
do.
not being specific when we say that. Like, you should say, if you
Yeah,
want a
there
community
are-
center, you have to
there's
say
a-
at the new market building. Otherwise, they'll put it
Be
in the
very
middle of green space.
Yeah, no, it will be very specific about the new market site and not to cut the new market site into a smaller chopped up building. And we will also be very specific to say park storage does not belong on the waterfront, it belongs inland.
All right, Nancy, sorry. It's okay.
Gavin.
I would really like to see the seaport concept reflected in the area. I know we have some ships here and there, but it doesn't feel like a seaport.
Yep.
That's interesting, yeah. And that's the thing that's unique about it. Interesting, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a good point.
Can we get an amen, please?
I want to just finish with our committee. Did we get everybody, on the committee or on the board? Did you give me did we get you guys all, the three of you? I mean, the two of you got your three.
I sent you some.
Okay, excellent. Funding is fine.
Gavin had his hand up.
Okay.
Can I just chime in really
Hi,
quick?
Gavin, yeah.
Really,
Sure,
really
yes.
quick. I just wanted to, in the discussions of all the green space, perhaps we should change that into future proofing the resiliency, because Earth is heavy. And by telling them to build like bigger foundations, it actually allows us to build what we want on top of them without sort in the future. So in other words, them changing the plan for a park, I understand might not be accessible, but actually hardening it so that it can take more weight of resiliency on top gives us a little bit more flexibility in terms of an argument. The other discussion, I completely agree with everyone in terms of making the seaport more like a seaport and increasing the interaction with the water. But and to that end, I was wondering, has there ever been, and this is from ignorance, has there ever been a discussion of moving the new NYC ferry terminals in front of the Maritime building so that you go around the walkway, through the wall, and then into the ferry terminal? So then all of the ferry terminals are consolidated and we then have access to the entire walkway.
But they looked at that, and they definitely looked at that ferry, but it was at two different levels. I think the answer to that is yes, but it's a good question, and we should bring it up, specifically at the next meeting, Gavin. But I think the answer is yes.
Okay.
I think the answer, if I remember correctly on that, was there wasn't enough frontage on the Battery Maritime building to do all the ferries that they wanted, and Pier 6 was in the way. And they weren't getting rid of 6, and the Battery Maritime, I'm pretty certain that Constance Cipriani doesn't want the ferry terminal behind their building.
No.
I'm 100% positive of that, but that's hey, listen, they got a lovely building that's private.
Private, right, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, anything else from, thank you, Deborah. Anybody, oh, Joe, sorry, I thought, Joe. Good.
You had your hand up again. Are you okay?
All right. Joe, anything else? No, I can't hear you, Joe. You're on mute. Okay.
I said my piece. Thank you.
All right, Joe, thanks very much. All right, I think everyone opined. This is great. We're up 9:03. Thanks a lot. Please feel free to send anything. I will try to put some sort of schematic thing together for the meeting in February, and good night.
Meeting is adjourned.
Bye.